Noemi, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear everyone.
Thank you.
All right, Jenny, are we ready? I see a thumbs up.
Yeah, we're ready.
Awesome. All right. Well, good evening, board directors, members of the budget committee, Superintendent Larios, and our guests, both in person and those attending online. Thank you for joining us at our first budget meeting. It is now 5:46, and I now call this budget meeting to order. Gavel down. If you can please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So as we can see, we have our agenda here in front of us. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Microphone.
That would help. I second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion or questions? All right, seeing none, all in favor of adopting the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is introductions, but we did introduce ourselves at our last meeting. So we will move on to the third item, which is elections. And this is where we will nominate and vote for a budget committee chair. So this is an opportunity if somebody would like to nominate. Or Jenny, if you'd like to share a little bit about, I know last time it took us a little bit longer to get through this process, but if you wanted to share a little bit more about that.
Yes, so you've now opened up for nominations. So the chair, our board chair will accept any nominations. And then after hearing none, then you'll close nominations. And then we'll see kind of how many people we end up with. Because if you end up with 2 or more, then we'll have to kind of go refer to the policy for voting. But if you have less than 2, then everyone would just vote for 1. And then the majority will take a motion for the person with the majority of the votes, and then a second, and then you'll all vote for that person. I'll walk you through it.
All right, so it looks like at this time, we will open up for nominations for the budget committee chair.
I nominate Rick Puente for Budget Committee Chair. I
Is
second it.
there a second? Thank you.
Hold on, no, you don't need a second
more?
yet. You need to continue to accept
More
nominations.
All right. So at this time, we can welcome more nominations. All right, it looks like I see none.
Well, then I nominate Devin Freeland as committee chair.
Any other nominations? Going once. All right, Jenny, what is next?
Now, so you will close nominations.
Okay, so we are closing nominations.
And then, do you both accept to be nominated?
Yes, I'll accept.
Okay, so they both accept. So now we're gonna go down the line and everyone will vote for their top. So vote for 1. And I could do a roll call vote if you would like.
Yes, please, if you can do that.
Okay. And candidates, you can vote for yourself or you can abstain. It's up to you, but it's not illegal to vote for yourself. And Chair Legaspi, Lisa just walked in. Right now we're electing a chair of the budget committee. There's been 2 nominations, Rick Puente and Devin Freeland. So we'll go down the line and you'll vote for one. Okay, I'm gonna do a roll call vote. And then make sure you speak into the microphone, please. So Devin, your vote?
I'll vote for myself.
Okay, great. Janice?
Rick Puente.
Kelly?
Rick Puente.
Scott?
Rick Puente.
Ryan?
Freeland.
Courtney?
Rick Puente.
Rick? Sorry. Okay.
Rick
Rosie? Okay. I'm saying your name, that way she knows who's talking. Lisa?
Mr. Puente, please.
And Miss Legaspi?
Rick Puente.
Okay. So next, if someone can make a motion to appoint Rick Puente as the budget committee chair, since he has the majority.
I make the motion to appoint Rick Puente as budget chair.
And I'll second it now.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. You can call for a discussion or you can call for a vote.
Okay, so we can call for a discussion if there's questions or discussion. Seeing none, I call for a vote. So all in favor of selecting budget committee chair as Rick Puente, please say aye.
Aye.
You can call for an opposed.
Any opposed?
None.
Seeing none. Okay, motion carries. A budget committee chair, welcome Rick Puente.
Okay, Chair Legaspi, so you're now handing over the gavel to Chair Puente.
All
So he
right,
can do the next for the vice chair.
okay.
Yeah, right. So I guess at this point, first of all, thank you very much. I know that we served last year in this role, and so I'm excited to do that again this year, so thank you. Which at this time opens up for the proposal of a vice chair for the budget committee. And so we will open up for nominations at this time.
I make a motion to appoint Janice Price as the Budget Committee Vice Chair.
Correction, you nominate?
I nominate, correction.
You nominate?
I nominated Janice Price as the Budget Committee Vice Chair.
Thank you.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Devin Freeland.
Is there any other nominations or nomination recommendations? Okay. Seeing none, at this point, we have 2 nominated for the vice chair of the budget committee. That's Devin Freeland and Janice Price. So
And do you both accept the nominations?
Yes.
Yes.
So now, sorry.
No, you're good.
I was gonna say I could do a roll call vote again.
Yes, that'd be probably the best way to do that. So, so at this point, we will take, knowing our 2 nominations, we will go ahead and take a roll call vote.
Okay. Noemi? Did you hear who the 2 nominees are?
Janice Price.
Janice and Devin Freeland. Is that your vote, Janice? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Lisa?
Mr. Freeland.
Rosie,
Janice,
Rick,
Janice,
Courtney,
Mr. Freeland,
Ryan,
Mr. Freeland.
Scott,
Denise.
Kelly,
Janice,
Janice,
I'll abstain from voting.
and
I'm going to abstain as well.
okay. So Janice has 5 votes and Devin has 3 votes. So now you would entertain a motion to appoint Janice as the Budget Committee Vice Chair.
all right. So now that the roll call has been taken and the votes have been documented, we will now entertain a motion to appoint Janice Price as the vice chair for the budget committee. And any discussion? Okay, so we can do a roll call at this.
You need a motion.
Oh, we need a
I
motion.
so move.
So we have a motion for the nomination of Janice Price for vice chair of the budget committee. Do we have a second?
I second.
Second by Chair Legaspi.
And all in
And-
favor?
Is there any other discussion? Okay, with no other discussion, we don't need to do a roll call. We could just do,
A vote.
okay, a vote. So overall vote, all in favor of the nomination of Janice Price for the vice chair of the budget committee, say aye.
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 Any opposed? With none opposed, the vote carries, and Denise is the vice chair. Congratulations. So, okay. Well, with that tedious task out of the way, we will go ahead and continue on with our agenda for tonight, which is basically going to our Budget 101, presented by our Director of Business, Sarah Bishop. So, Sarah, the floor is yours.
And I apologize, you guys already have that.
Okay.
And you were
So-
all here at that meeting. Sorry, Noemi. And you were all at that meeting. So if it's okay with you, I would like to skip that piece
Okay.
since you've already heard it. Or I've already subjected you to that torture for one meeting.
It was very knowledgeable.
Thank you.
Did anyone have any questions from our last meeting that you pondered? And if you did, I hope you submitted those to Sarah prior to this meeting. But if not, this is a great opportunity to just allow for any other questions prior to moving forward.
And we will do a deeper dive into the budget. So if you have any like housekeeping type questions or what the budget means sort of thing, that would be a great time.
So if we recall from the previous meeting, we wanted to know what the price was, or the cost of, attendance per child, just so parents were aware, and as well as students.
Yes, and I went back to try and quantify what that would look like. And honestly, I couldn't come up with any data that would be useful and truly reliable to quantify what that actually looks like, besides the per pupil allocation we get from the state, which we'll go over in the document. So I didn't want to come up with something that might be misleading.
That makes sense. Any other questions?
So I do have a follow-up to that question. Does that mean, you said there was no reliable data? Does that mean there's no financial impact?
There is
What does
financial
that mean?
Yes, there is financial impact when students don't come to school and we have to drop them. But to be able to quantify what that means year over year, I just couldn't extrapolate that sort of data to come up with any reliable number.
Not
What
even on
about for this year?
What's that?
What about for this year?
For this year? No. At the end of this year, we could go back and look. I think that if that's something we're tracking a little closer, potentially.
Not even on an average daily basis kind of perspective?
No, because is this on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so the impact comes when students are 10-day dropped, and if they're dropped when the report happens. So it's not on a absence of daily absence. It's when those 10-day consecutive absences happen and a student is dropped when the count is submitted to the state. That's when there's a potential for impact if students are not enrolled because they've been dropped because of their attendance.
And so I'm hearing you say it's after a 10-day drop. So do we have a number on what that might look like?
I do not, because there's also, so there's the 10-day drop portion, right? But there's also the rebalancing of the state school fund that happens. So while we submit this data, this attendance data to ODE, several times throughout the year, they'll rebalance the state school fund with everyone's attendance. So if our attendance is better for the year than other districts, so if our ADM doesn't decline as much or it goes up, the impact, our impact is reflected based upon what other districts look like as well. Like how we talked about at the last meeting, if the entire state is in declining enrollment, but ours declines less than the average decline, we actually get an increase in state school fund. So this impacts that as well.
Thank you.
So just for my understanding on that, it sounds like fluctuates at the 10-day, not the daily as maybe what.
As long as
Rose
they're
does.
enrolled in a
Yeah.
full day program.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Perfect. Thank you for that. So, with that, at this time, moving forward, if there is no other questions or discussions, we will move forward to Superintendent Larios, who has our budget message today. So.
Yeah, so every year at the budget committee meeting, the superintendent presents this budget message, and it sets the priorities that the district's budget is based on. So you'll have a copy of that in front of you, and I'm going to take some time just kind of review it and read through it. It sets the stage for what our budget that we're going to be presenting is going to be based on. And I'd like to applaud the budget committee's work last year, the school board's work ongoing, and the district's work to really set the district up in a healthy financial place so that we're in a position, not like many other districts around us who are in like layoff mode and falling off the cliff, but we're in a place of stability where we're really looking to continue to maintain what we have. And I'm going to walk through a little bit of that in our budget message here. So dear Woodburn community, I'm honored to present this year's budget proposal for the Woodburn School District that's shaped by our values and define who we are: accountability, cultural diversity, equity, family and community partnerships, civic responsibility, lifelong learning, and multilingualism. This budget is more than just the numbers on the page. It's the reflection of our community's deep commitment to the success of each student. As a district, we stand firmly on our promise to engage, inspire, and prepare each student to learn, lead, and to contribute towards building a more equitable community, both local and globally. Every decision reflected in this budget has been made with that mission in mind. We recognize that accountability to our students, families, and community is crucial. Annually, our budget development provides us with the opportunities to reflect upon our use of resources in order to further strengthen our stewardship of public resources and community trust and maximize services for our students. Our investments must drive towards our collective vision, a diverse, multilingual, and equitable community of learners where each student is supported and prepared to succeed. This budget strengthens our work to celebrate and honor cultural diversity and multilingualism. We will continue to support our dual language programs, a proud cornerstone of our community, provide culturally relevant curriculum and training, and uplift the languages and traditions that make Woodburn such a vibrant place to live. Equity remains a guiding principle. Our investments target closing opportunity gaps, providing academic and social emotional support, and ensuring that each student, regardless of background, has what they need to thrive. We recognize that family and community partnerships are central to student success. We maintain the importance of our families to engage meaningfully with schools strengthening the partnership to improve learning and deepen collaboration with local partners who share our goal for students. By nurturing civic responsibility and lifelong learning, we aim to provide students not only to succeed academically, but also to become active, thoughtful contributors to their communities. This budget presents not only an investment in today's students, but in the future of Woodburn itself. Through careful stewardship of resources, strategic planning, and collaboration with you all, our students, our families, our staff, and community members, we'll continue moving towards a Woodburn School District where every learner is engaged, inspired, and prepared for success. Over the course of the year, we engage with our community to hear what priorities our students, staff, and families have for well-rounded education, equity advanced, engaged communities, and strengthened systems and capacities. Priorities such as social, emotional, and behavioral support, education assistance in classrooms, improved attendance, community partnerships, learning opportunities for staff, and career and technical education were identified. In our budget, we continue to prioritize and maintain investments in these priorities. We are maintaining our number of school counselors, social workers, and behavior specialists. Additionally, by utilizing high school success dollars previously used to purchase spots at the Willamette Career Academy, we're opening career and technical education classes here on campus so that more of our high school students can access them. We're all aware of how fragile the state of Oregon's funding model is. The state has struggled to fund schools at needed levels for many years. This has left many districts relying on temporary funding sources as enrollment drops. Woodburn has largely resisted relying on temporary funding sources to eliminate budget staffing gaps. Last year, this budget committee did the difficult work of reducing staffing levels from central office administrators to instructional assistants, through attrition and through reassignment, to more closely align our staffing levels with our student enrollment. Through reduced spending, strategic staffing decisions, and tapping into our ending fund balance, Woodburn has positioned itself to be in a healthy financial situation moving into the next biennium. The current projected Oregon State School Fund budget, based on the governor's originally proposed $11.36 billion budget, is only enough to allow the Woodburn School District to maintain current levels of programs options that are reflective of our projected enrollment. It's important to note that while our state school fund grant amount is increasing by 5.8%, that increase is all eaten up in our roll-up costs alone, such as increases to PERS, salaries, and benefits. It does not provide us with the necessary resources to add on or expand programs or staffing levels beyond what is required to serve our current enrollment. We'll be moving forward with cautious optimism as we move into bargaining with both our associations and a somewhat uncertain future regarding federal funding. At this time, our understanding is that the federal funding model should not change much going into next school year, and funding should be relatively stable. With that said, we'll continue looking for opportunities to increase efficiency in order to brace Woodburn should there be a change to future federal funding. While we cannot predict the full extent of possible future federal funding changes, our goal is to work to minimize the impact of possible changes on students, staff, and the Woodburn School District community. Thank you all for your ongoing support and commitment to the shared vision, mission, and values. Together, we are building a stronger future for every student and every family in Woodburn. So some of the assumptions on which this budget is built: that the state school fund allocation of $70,933,404 is based on the $11.36 billion state school budget. That we're investing 49% of that, of the biennium allocation. That our projected enrollment, our ADM, will be relatively flat. An anticipated reduction of $371,462 in title funds. Some of our expenditure assumptions: we'll be honoring the negotiated contracts with licensed and classified staff. Our total general fund staffing costs are $71,582,746, and that represents 79% of our expenditures. Our ending fund balance and contingency of $5,751,578 is 5% of the general fund revenue. That's the lowest allowable amount per board policy. Our per student allocation at buildings will remain the same as in the prior year's budget. And then some of staffing and program assumptions. And we'll get into these as well when we get into the budget. But we'll maintain current staffing levels aligned with student enrollment. We are reducing extended hour expenditures in order to maintain current FTE levels. We are increasing licensed positions by a 1.3 FTE. That's an elementary level and elementary PE teacher. We're increasing classified positions by 15 FTE. That's primarily to address needs in special education. And we are reducing administrator position by 1 FTE, and that's in the central office, the Assistant Director of Student Services. So with gratitude and determination, present this budget message to the committee, and it sets the priorities that the budget is based on, and we'll be going into that packet in depth in the next agenda item.
So the assistant director of student services, is that at the high school or is that the administrative office?
That's here in the central office. That's a central office administrator position.
Is that a past position that's gone unfilled previously, or can you share a little of the rationale behind that?
That position has not been filled this year. It was on our books, but that was a reassignment. And so we've been operating without the assistant director of student services, and now it's being reduced.
Reduced?
That position to FTE.
Oh, it's being reduced. I thought it was being added.
No. This
Okay.
is a reduction. This is a reduction in administrators.
Yeah.
So is that reduced or cut? Like it?
Cut. You want us to call it? You want to call it
eliminating,
cut? Yeah.
So, okay.
I have a question. So it says we've reduced extended hours. Will that continue next year? Will it be additional hours reduced? And what programs is that impacting?
The reduction in extended hours is for the next school year. And so there'll be a reduction in many different programs. A lot of it will be in the student investment account. So it'll be in many different spaces that extended hours are being reduced.
So I think last year on the budget committee, there was a reduction in the extended hours. Is this on top of that reduction? Like, are we cutting even more, or are we just maintaining what was cut last year?
We're cutting further into extended hours.
Can you give us some examples of which programs will be impacted by this?
I don't know if there's necessarily a specific program that's taking the brunt of this. It's more of an across-the-board reduction. The intent is not to eliminate a program or an activity, but to reduce the extended time associated with it.
Correct. But I guess my question is this sports? Is this, I mean, surely there's going to be an impact to some degree. And my question is, what are some of that? Can you share some examples of that impact?
Sure. Athletics isn't one of them. Those are all stipended positions that are bargained within the CBA. We have no intent of eliminating or reducing coaching positions or current extracurricular positions at this point. Again, that's all bargained within the CBA. It would be more like committee work or asking someone to stay after to do something in the office, that sort of thing. Those sorts of reductions.
Are there some clubs as well? where some of the
Most
teachers will
clubs, well, a good
teach?
portion of clubs are stipended positions as well, like National Honor Society, things like that are in the
Okay.
bargaining agreement.
So like after-school program isn't one of them?
The after-school club, no, that's separate and funded by a grant.
So committee work would be, for example, like the MTSS, let's say that goes on to next year.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a possible committee that where the reductions could come.
Yeah, I just use that example because that's the only one that I'm on that committee. So I'm sure there's other committees, but it's the only one that I'm aware of at this time.
Will this be like we've shortened hours since you're not going to take away in any specific program, right?
Yes, shorten the amount of hours that are allowed by people who are eligible for extended time. A lot of what that then turns into, and I'm sorry for all the administrators in the room, is the work going to people who aren't eligible for extended time, such as administrators and directors.
Is there opportunities for volunteers to step in and participate on that?
Always, we love volunteers.
Okay, and that would be something we could put out to the committee, I mean, community.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So are the counselors, are they licensed or are they classified positions?
They're licensed positions.
So licensed positions. Okay,
Correct.
thanks.
Just off the top of your head, what has extended, what's been the cost of extended pay in the past?
Overall extended time
Yeah.
across the district for everything, just for the salaries portion, is usually close to $1.5 million.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because that includes, the extended time includes the benefits that go with that as
So
well,
that's
correct? Yeah.
just the
Overall.
the wages cost.
And then I have another question. So if we're making those cuts, the 1.5 million is I think what I heard. And now are those funds going to cover something else, or are we just eliminating that amount?
They're going to maintain current staffing.
Okay.
So we're,
So
we're
this
not
would
adding
be-
things due to that
Okay.
reduction.
So because next year's like COLA and salary is going up as staff moves up a step, it's gonna cover that cost? Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, it'll go into maintaining current staffing levels and payroll and benefit costs.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Superintendent Larios regarding his message? Hearing none. Superintendent Larios, thank you very much for your message and your continued support of the mission of Woodburn School District. So at this time, we will continue to move forward on our agenda. And we will switch to athletics at this point. And so we will have Chad Waples.
Thank you, Chad, and thank you, Principal Nash, for being here. Come on up, yeah. There. Oh, the mic.
Is this good? Okay.
Yeah, I want to thank you both for being here. Last at the Budget Committee training, there's some questions that arose around athletics and how some of the funds are used at the athletic department. This is an opportunity for Director Waples, Principal Nash, to graciously being here to answer some questions and help provide some clarity for the Budget Committee on athletic funds and resources.
Yes, good evening, members of the board and budget committee. Not long ago, we had the opportunity to present about our programs at the high school, but did not get the opportunity to present a more comprehensive report about athletics. So we'll have the opportunity to do that tonight, and Mr. Waples will lead that presentation.
Yeah, thank you. I know some of you, but I don't know all of you. Quick, just me, been here for 11 years, starting 12. Assistant principal, athletic director, worked in a little bit of capacity at Success for a little while as a principal there back at the high school. Love the district. Thank you so much for what you're doing for our kids. It's a big deal, obviously, and we thank you for your time. And I just wanted to make sure I said that. The presentation that I put together, I'll be able to fly through the first about 9 slides pretty fast, but because I know you want to get to some questions or have some questions for me on budget or whatever, but I wanted to give you a quick snapshot of what happened this year with athletics, and then kind of show you a quick general overview of the budget, and then kind of some of our asks. Since I'm sitting here, I thought, you know what, I might as well let you know what we probably need for the future. So who are we? We're made up of lots of different things. You know, the kiddos, parents, Woodburn community people, and then our district teams. So lots of different people coming in and out of our doors make up athletics. The next one is mentorship. Just wanted to share, I think it skipped a couple slides there. I think that's slide 3. So number 2, I have it mentorship. Yeah, right there. I just wanted to share. A lot of people don't know how many coaches we have. 58 high school coaches at the high school. 41 volunteer coaches. That's up from 18 The district, we talked about that at the beginning of the year, family engagement. So we made it a critical piece to get people coming to our programs and helping and getting them cleared. I don't know if HR appreciated that, all that paperwork, but they got it, 18 to 41, and just involved in kids' lives, right? Attendance checks all the time and grade checks. Real thankful for the coaches. They're OSAA certified and they're ready to work with the kids, and then they're doing tons of things. As a district, I believe you're well over 100 contracted coaches in the district. Next slide, opportunity. Lots of stuff going on all the time.
Quick question.
You-
Going
you-
back to volunteers, is that spread out between the elementary and?
That's high school only. So these are high school numbers.
Okay.
And I will always be able to remember your questions. Like we can always go back if you need to, if I miss something.
And
Um,
on the attendance coaches, I mean, checks and,
attendance checks are done daily.
and that's done by the volunteer coaches, or is that done?
No,
the
it's done by
actual-
our contracted coaches in our athletic department.
As well as the grade checks?
Correct. Yep, our staff in the athletic office. Yep. So that kind of gives you a little idea of lots of different things we're doing for the kids daily. The next slide is on opportunity. Just letting you know that we have 3 sports seasons, a fall, winter, and spring. 16 athletic programs. We had one that's a cooperative agreement this year, and that was swimming. If you have questions on that later, I'll answer the questions. Fall is soccer, football, volleyball, cross country, cheer, and dance. Winter, basketball, wrestling, and then spring, tennis, golf, baseball, softball, and track. So it gives you a little idea of what we offer. Participation is the next one. How many kiddos? We have 511 this year and 357 multi-sport athletes. So I think that's 868 technically participation in there. I looked at some data from a few years ago, which it kind of jumped out at me because I used to kind of help with the middle schools as well. 474 at the time, this is about 5 years ago, we had almost 500 kids every day in the district participating in athletics. And that just jumped out. I'm not sure exactly what the number is, but when you really sit down and start thinking about that, that's almost half our school. And we're a pretty large 5A high school. Slide number 5 is experiences. 531 athletic events this year, 16 senior night recognitions and banquets, fall and winter sport parent meetings, and then we'll end the year with an athletic signing day. So lots of opportunities for parents to be involved and help us out. Partnership, I feel like we have lots of different partners. We're partnered with the OSAA that governs all of our athletics and our activities, the events. So we have lots of different rules. We're partnered with the Mid-Willamette Conference. It's made up of 10 5A high schools in the area. Central, Corvallis, Crescent Valley, Dallas, Lebanon, McKay, South Albany, Silverton, West Albany, and Woodburn. That makes up our region. And then obviously the families, the community, and I put in here, in addition to the Bulldog Foundation, has been a huge partner, especially over the last few years. Lots of coaches participating with the Bulldog Foundation and those parents that are supporting our kids at a very high level. The next one, in partnerships, we have some technology, so we're always trying to improve technology. We have Huddle for live streaming, so if you haven't seen our events, you can live stream it. NFHS live streaming. We're trying to follow all the OSAA regulations, so we're constantly getting different things thrown at us. 2 years ago was the shot clocks in the basketball games, and now I'm here and they want us to do timing clocks for football. So those are things that we got to think about all the time from a budget standpoint. 2 other technology things I threw in there. Main gym grandstand sound system, probably on its last leg. We probably need to start thinking about that one. And then over the last few years, we've replaced every scoreboard. The last one we got to do is baseball. Budget overview. I put a live link, but I don't think that was going to work. So the next slide will kind of give you a general overview of like what a general budget looks like in athletics and how we do things. It's pretty simple, to be honest. I think when you go through it, you'll see what we're doing. Really, we look at the program. Is it co-ed or is it individual? Co-ed and individual sports really get the same budget. It's $1,500 per sport, or $3,000 if they're co-ed. General fund covers all of the fees associated with individual programs. So if you wanted specific things, I'd have to dive into like literally thousands of different POs over the course of the year, right? 531 athletic events we put on this year. So there's lots of different expenditures that come out. The $1,500 doesn't cover all of those things, right? Like those come out of our general fund. So things that the programs have to have, like officials, or I don't know if Turfus, or the many different things that are out there that we might need to purchase to get that baseball game played or get those kids to the contest, we pay for as a district. We give them a supply budget. That's what you're seeing there. Hopefully that makes sense, and I'll answer any of those questions here in a second as they come to you. All programs have an ASB account that allows them to do their own fundraising on their own. And in addition, many of them, when I mentioned they're partnering with the Bulldog Foundation, are working directly with that nonprofit now, creating their own accounts within our Booster Club or the Bulldog Foundation. That's been just a really way to partner there and get some needed finances that they can use very quickly, and that impacts their kiddos right away. I would say probably accessibility, right, to the funds. When it comes to decisions on stuff, we don't really have a protocol or system. We just kind of try to keep about 10 grand to 15 grand at the end of every year to make bigger upgrades if we can. For example, this year, we're moving forward with a new trailer that we're using for our entrance to the football stadium. Why? Because it's falling apart. The lights are going out. It's literally getting to the point where it's going to become a ticket booth, if that makes sense, right? It's actually going to be pretty awesome. Way safer for our event management team that's working in there. And then portable. So we're going to be able to use it for away games, to transport equipment. So we're really kind of, helping out multiple things. When you think about like a football game and they have 100 bags that go on the bus, it's always a nightmare. We're renting vans and doing all this stuff, right, to get all that gear to the game. Well, now we'll just throw it in the trailer, right? We don't need it because it's Friday night, no events here. We're going on the road. So we're trying to always be analytical and look at ways to save money, right? So that's an example of what we're trying to do with that money this year. Any individual POs, if those type of things, those questions come up, you just got to let me know, and we have a file system, but it's, like I said, thousands of things I can dig up for if you have those questions. And the last couple are on improvements, and these are just things that, these are my opinion and our staff. I've obviously talked with Dulce about it, and things that I don't know where we're at in the budget. I haven't been in one of these meetings for a little while. I was kind of excited to get to go and kind of talk to you, but that's where we're at. If we want to get these next phase ones, this is if we want to catch up to the schools around us, right? So you need to add 2 to 4 tennis courts. The rest of the schools have about 6. We got 4. Varsity and softball synthetic infields. About half of them have it. We don't. Something we should maybe try to look at. Upgrading on the lights is a big one. I put the name of the company in there, and that's really just because the cost, I'm replacing those big lights several a year, and they're so high and so expensive. Like literally this past fall, we bought all the, I think it's called a ballast, or like all of the, because they're running out. Like the company said, like, you might want to buy the rest of them if you're going to keep those lights because they're not making them anymore. So we bought like 9, right? So something to think about. That company will put LED lights on existing poles. A lot of the other ones won't. The next level stuff that I'll show you on the map is more synthetic. In my opinion, the more synthetic turf that you got, the more accessibility you have for all the kids. It's more playing time. It's year round. It's lots of experiences. So I kind of made you a little map of what I would do if it was me making the final decisions on that. Lots of ideas, lots of different things, but that's just a quick snapshot. I could talk about this for weeks, honestly, with you.
Is that another tennis court there?
Yeah, yeah. And that's on site. I don't see it really working anywhere else. You'd want it right there. The drawback there is you wouldn't have lights. I mean, it's probably possible, but I don't think that's figured into that budget line that I put in there. But the last thing I wanted to get on your radar is FTE. COVID, I have an athletic trainer / teacher. Okay, so in COVID, when athletics was non-existent basically because it wasn't allowed, my trainer went into the classroom. He's a licensed teacher. I used to have him co-teaching 2 periods, and then I had him here the rest of the day. Now he's loving CTE, he's teaching, and I really need him back. Like all that, he still wants to keep teaching. He's doing a lot of work with Mrs. Nash and building the CTE programs. He's working on grants, but I need to have him 5th and 6th period again. And what that allows us to do is to have treatments every day. Right now, he's not available every day. He's only available every other day because of where we need him in the classroom. But ideally, just want to throw that out there. We could have him teaching 7th and 8th period in CTE. He does his treatments during the day, during lunch, which is very valuable practice time for the kids and very valuable for the kids just in general. It's very consistent that way. We pay him as a licensed staff member, same as a teacher, which is why he's been here for a long time and why it's been very valuable when it comes to taking care of our kids, communicating with our parents, creating very good plans with our parents. It's phenomenal. And I will also say he loves the job here. First of all, he loves the kids, and he's on a 40-hour-a-week contract, but I'm telling you what, he's working for free a lot. I don't have the money to pay him extended time in my budget. He's never asked me for extended. And when you look at the 531 events that we do and every night we have him here, or most nights, it's, you know what I'm saying? Like he's here a lot. So I want to throw that in there. Wouldn't cost us, I don't know the dynamics. I would have to probably deflect to Mrs. Nash, but it's basically one class I'm trying to get back from the district.
So what's been the,
So he teaches 4 classes with us, so he's part-time. So he teaches actually 3 out of 6. Yeah.
so what's been the impact on student athletes of his unavailability to treat them, and what impact has that had on athletic programs?
I would say the impact right now is just the inconsistency with the lunch treatments. So I think that's the biggest one, because when they can see the treatment, now they're losing practice time. So if they have an injury, they're seeing him after school when they could have already gone through that treatment. And then instead of being at practice, they're with Matt in the training room.
Mm-hmm. So then it's cutting down their
And
practice
and I
time.
will here's what I'll let you know, like there aren't any other schools that offer that.
The treatment during lunchtime.
Right.
Okay.
We are way above what other programs in Mid-Willamette Conference pull off.
Mhm.
Most schools, and they have a trainer for like 2 hours every day, right? They're there from 3:30 to 5:30 and they don't see him again.
Mhm.
We have Matt pretty much all the time. So I want to make sure that's clear, right? Like we're doing things above and beyond. I want the best of the best in that world.
Sure.
So,
And then,
so that would be the biggest impact, I think, right now.
okay, thank you.
2 questions. The first, I had a chance to interact with Matt and I was super impressed. It was just a middle school meet, but he was lovely. Second thing regarding the turfs. Talk to me more about how that would benefit us, other than we're a rainy
Chair,
place.
I'm sorry
Lower
to
maintenance?
interrupt, but we should not be talking about staff during this public meeting. I just want to advise you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So talk to me a little bit more, since there was nothing but dirt when I was a kid.
I think it's practice time. It's experience. So I'll give you an example. If we have an infield turfed on the baseball field, our first 3 weeks of spring baseball was really rough. Now I'm very thankful for the last 3 weeks, but it was raining every day, right?
Yeah.
So for our baseball players, we're moving games, potentially losing games, and we're in the gym.
Okay.
We have some very nice facilities in the gym, but that's not the same,
Right.
right? It's different running the bases, taking the ground balls and getting that extra work. You can't do it on the dirt. And we've made some upgrades, quite frankly, out there on baseball that are decent. Like we have a turfed mound and a home plate and we've done the best we can, but that's a significant cost, right? So that's a huge one. It's all about experience, getting the kids more and more reps, more practice. And that's year round then all of a
Right.
sudden, right?
And I don't, so we had the Oregon Youth Soccer Association talk to us about a big complex. Is there any way to negotiate adding any multi-sport fields to that? Anyway, I just want to put it out there about how we might be creative around that. And I want to, okay, thank you.
Well,
I don't know the answer to that. I haven't
Yeah.
talked to anybody. I just
Right,
thought I'd
right,
throw
right,
this
right.
throw this together.
Right, okay.
So I commend you, Mr. Waples, just with the partnership and the presentation in regards to the athletics department. These are very much needed. So I definitely, from a personal standpoint, see the need. And so I hope that we can continue to move forward. From a financial standpoint, I think overall our focus is our students and not just their education in life and athletics. And I think that we've become a name around the state in several of our sports. So that makes us very proud. Any other questions or comments about the athletic department presentation?
Just a quick question. So the 120,000, that was not in addition to the baseball field, right? For the synthetic turf, one slide back. Where you had the breakdown for the synthetic turf.
Oh, your softball field would be 125. Baseball, it's just a bigger area, right? So it's going to be more.
And what's the square footage between the two needed areas?
I don't know that. I did rough estimates with what it cost people who've done it in the last year. I didn't know if we even had this money, so I wasn't gonna, you know what I mean? I wasn't gonna, I know those numbers are really sound. The only one I know that is really close is that upgrade on the LED. That's what it cost Silverton a year ago. 50 grand, that's 50 grand per field. So that would do both of those fields, both our varsity and what we have our sub-varsity fields.
The going rate is about 20 average dollars a square foot.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you had a wish list, how would, what would you say is the priority? What
I labeled them in priority.
Okay,
Yeah, pretty close. I mean, maybe not fully, but like, I think the LED lights,
Yeah.
I guess, I would probably bump that up, to be honest, if you wanted a priority list. Just because it's costing us money, right? Like, that's the big reason why a lot of districts, I believe, have gone to those. And then we're spending repair costs that are, I'm sure I'll have to do it again here, in a couple months because they seem to be going out.
If we had that information about what you're spending on, to replace those lights, that would be really helpful because
I could send that to you guys tomorrow. Could look
Okay.
it up
Yeah.
real
No,
fast.
because I think there's,
Yeah.
Depending on how much you're spending,
Yeah.
there's probably a justification, right?
Yeah.
It balances out that we change those lights and we
I
save
mean,
money
it's
with the LED.
$800 to get the lift.
Yeah.
So to get the lift, it's expensive.
Yeah, and the LEDs are going to be more efficient, right? So there's
Yeah.
probably a savings.
Yeah, I would
there,
think so.
just in electricity. Right. So, okay.
But in the long run, if the synthetic turf is less maintenance, it's cost effective in order to, because then you don't have to maintain it as you would, turf and dirt and so forth.
in my experience with the cost, be comparatively, I think where you win is about the kids, right? It's the experiences of the kids. I think if you were to dive into the money, it's about the same, from my understanding. I mean, I didn't bring that data. I didn't come here to push a
Yeah.
project, but I've done it before, right? When you look at the map, we didn't have that a few years ago.
I have a
This is, yeah.
question.
Oh,
I have a question. One, I appreciate the information and your wish list. My question is around, has there been conversation or creative ways to maybe somehow pay for these items?
I haven't spoke direct, just as from admin team at the high school, and then I guess I'm hoping that this opens the door, like I'll come back tomorrow if you want me to.
So
So I
if
don't
you
know.
don't mind me jumping in real fast.
Yes.
We're gonna get into this a little more in the budget. If you guys recall, there is an athletic reserve fund that's for these sorts of projects. So we can dive a little deeper into that.
I have another
Thank
quick question. So earlier when Superintendent Juan Larios was talking about reduction and so forth, and the FDE reduction hours, was that reflected to your trainer? How he does the extended, that's not, okay.
Okay. All right. If there's no other questions or comments, thank you both once again for the information. We definitely always have room for improvement in what we provide our students, and I think that that's the focus of our district. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you all so much for everything. Appreciate everything.
So definitely a lot of work to do, and work takes money, and these projects will take money, which leads us to right into almost the meat and potatoes of what we're here for, and that is our next agenda item, and that is the financial update and the budget review. And so I will turn it over to Director Bishop.
Thank you. And I'm hoping for this to be an interactive process. So as we're going through, if you have questions, if it's okay with the budget committee chair, if we can ask as we move through the presentation. Again, please feel free to ask anything. I'll let you know if I'm going to be mentioning that at a later point, and we'll direct to that time. But I would like this to be as interactive as possible. I will apologize for my voice. I was out sick yesterday, so if you need me to speak up, if I'm not speaking clearly, please tell me. And I'll try not to cough into the mic. I'm sorry, Noemi. Okay, so we're actually going to start at the back of this book. It's a little easier to jump into the easy stuff first. All the way to the absolutely last page, Appendix A-51. And this is our capital projects funds. These monies go to pay for capital projects, as you can guess it. The first one you see there is our major maintenance fund. And this is where we set aside monies to do large projects such as the high school roof, replacing HVAC, things of that nature. And so this is funded by a transfer from the general fund into this fund. It's like a savings account, again, so we can set aside money each year to do those larger projects that we're not able to fully expend in a singular year out of the general fund. So we're proposing a transfer out of the general fund, and we do set aside all of those funds completely for projects that come up. The next fund you see is Fund 410, our construction excise tax fund. We talked about that at the last meeting. That's monies we receive from new construction and expanded square footage on current construction. We set those aside for projects. We can't do repairs and maintenance, but we can make capital improvements on those. So we set those aside in a separate fund as well. You see the bond fund there. There is nothing in there, but we have to show it until those expenditures drop off. So in the next budget cycle, you won't see that at all on your report.
Can I stop you first? Where
Yes,
says,
please.
where says actuals? Are those the years, or I'm not understanding what
Yes,
those numbers are for.
actuals, so actuals 22, 23 is the actual
Oh, got
construction
it.
excise
Yep.
tax revenue
Then
that we brought
23,
in.
24, so that's showing bienniums right there. Or
School year,
School year.
fiscal year, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Then we have the athletic fund 420 on page
Yeah.
A52, the athletic reserve. Again, that's funded by a transfer into that fund. This fund was used, for example, to install the turf field and track at the high school. This fund would be available to do those athletic type projects that Mr. Waples and Mrs. Nash presented.
I have a question, Sarah.
Yes.
So it looks like we adopted in 24-25 the amount of 565,000, and then we are the proposed for this coming school year is to increase that amount. Or do we have a plan as to why? And are there any planned projects? Because the proposed number is now increased.
Presently, we don't have any planned projects that have been presented to us. Obviously, any major capital projects would have to come to their board for approval for contract award. Again, the amount we want to increase is because we didn't really do anything in 24-25. So we want to make sure we have money set aside there for those future capital projects, because not a lot of work has been done on the athletic facilities since the turf field went in. So we do want to make sure we have some in reserve.
Thank you.
So I'm seeing, if I did my math right, we have 150,000 more. There's even more than that. I'm not sure I'm looking at.
So we didn't do a transfer in 24-25. So we're
Okay.
proposing a transfer in for 25-26.
Got it. Well, that's exciting.
So how much we're transferring more in, but we don't have any projects planned?
Not presently, no.
Does that mean, like, what does that mean for next year?
Yes, this could be for next year, but we also need to reserve some aside for when we do have to do major projects such as replacing the turf field. So I would not recommend to the budget committee or the board when projects do come, because again, any major capital project has to be approved by the board. I would not recommend spending that down to zero. I would recommend setting some aside to reserve for future projects.
I guess I'm just, how much would we want to build up? So we're 915,000
Mhm.
this year. Is that enough to get us through next year, or how much would we add next year?
So next year would be the add of the 350,000. So that would be for 25-26. You mean 26-27?
Or, yeah, I'm sorry. So, yes, like after that. So I guess, are we gonna add and then the year after, we don't need to add, or does it just depend entirely on projects?
My recommendation would be continue to add as long as
Okay.
we have resources within the general fund, because again, we're continuing to set aside for future projects. I don't think we want to be caught off guard with, oh no, we don't have money to replace, insert whatever needs to be replaced here.
Sure.
So my recommendation would be to never spend that down to zero, but that really is planning that the maintenance department does in collaboration with athletics.
I mean, this could be for the replacement of the lights.
Yeah.
Which is coming up, so.
Yeah,
kind of
that could
anticipate
absolutely be used for
things
that.
That are gonna be breaking down or things that need to be built up, so.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Correct.
So yeah, we've heard from athletics, but I'm just kind of curious, like over all the districts, over the whole district, is there more things that are maybe coming down the line, or I have no idea, right? What's possible, and so if we had more information about that.
I think some things that would be valuable to the district would be track and field or tracks at our middle schools, because we don't have those. And I mean, kids are trying to walk over, at least from French Prairie to the high school, so they don't really get to participate. So I think some things like that would be coming out of this fund eventually if
It
it was
could.
proposed, it
Mhm.
could.
Is there district policy? Because I know, like you mentioned earlier, or I believe in Superintendent Largo's message, the state requires that every district cannot spend below a fund, you have to have a minimal amount. I think it was like 5%.
There's no requirements for reserve funds.
Okay,
Some districts, for some reason, do not have them.
okay.
But again, foresight of the board many years ago to start having these funds for maintenance and athletics.
And have we made that an internal policy, like, so that way we have a little more structured guidance in
We
that?
do not have
So-
any internal policy about reserve funds.
That 5% earlier was speaking to our general fund, and
Yeah,
there is a
that's
board
the- yeah.
policy on that.
And I know sometimes, you know, when you look at state directed policies and things and laws, sometimes at the operational level, you also want to establish other protocols and guidelines. So that way
Yeah.
you're setting some standards for,
Yes, and our district
Successful.
has been fortunate enough to be able to set monies aside. But I know in smaller districts, if you tell them even they have to set aside $50,000 a year,
that's a
well, then
lot.
you've lost your only first grade teacher,
Right.
for example. So I don't think the state would want to step into something like that.
Juan, I have a question with regards to what is the district, your wish list, what would be your what do you see as a priority improvement? Besides a new school from,
I think that's what we work with our staff, our maintenance department to continue to evaluate what the needs of our buildings are and to bring those forward. We work closely with what's, our team available. And, at the May board meeting, we'll be bringing a resolution forward around one of our needs and on the high school gym roof repair. And so we're on top of the situations, working with our maintenance staff to continue to take care of our facilities and to provide those safe, engaging, welcoming environments.
right, and we have multiple needs around that. And I know we've made some really lovely improvements around, and I would guess there's continuing thoughts on that. Do you know, besides the roof, any upcoming or what I would,
Yeah, we don't have any plans for like large major maintenance projects. We're continuing to operate within our balanced budget to take care of the needs of our facilities and provide the best spaces for our students and staff.
right? And if there were funds, what would you say would be future priorities?
Like if there was
There's,
bond funds?
yeah, bond.
Yeah.
If we pass a
Or-
bond.
Well, I guess within, I mean, besides, I understand, we have very old buildings and whatnot, but if smaller, no, okay.
We generally don't have smaller dedicated funds that come to us for capital improvements. I think
Okay.
if we did have a bond or something like that, we'd go through the same community engagement process as before to identify community needs.
Okay.
So what's the state percentage number to keep in reserves for?
It depends on the upcoming projects. Yeah, that really is what drives it.
and just for clarification, you have a district capital projects committee that's year round, or is that just established when projects come up?
We don't have an active one presently.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had the long range facilities plan that was
Mhm.
completed 2 years ago.
Yes.
So that was done 2 years ago. So we can do some of that long range facility planning.
Okay.
Can you- yeah.
Sorry. I brought my last year's budget book
Mhm.
with us here, and last year's budget, it had the high school success in.
Mhm.
This year it fell off.
Yes.
Why?
Because there's no longer activities in those lines that pertain to the years that have to be presented in the budget. So just like when you look at sorry, I already skipped over to a different one. My apologies. So when you look at Fund 414, Bond Fund 2015, you won't see that next year because we won't be presenting actuals from 2023.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can licensed staff be paid with reserve funds?
No.
Okay. But you can transfer reserve funds to general funds?
You can, yes, you can transfer reserve funds back to whatever source you wish. But that would require a resolution, so you'd have to see a transfer outline. So in the general fund, you see transfers out, you'd have to see a transfer outline in one of these to be able to transfer the funds elsewhere.
That's a resolution through the school board, not the budget committee.
The budget committee
Committee
could make a
could.
resolution as recommend
Mhm.
to make that adjustment, or the school board could do it at a later time.
Okay. Do we just have a reserve fund for the athletic, or is there other reserve funds?
The major maintenance reserve fund, Fund 405, that's on A51.
Mhm.
And then I have a question.
Mhm.
Buildings acquisition, what is that referring to?
Buildings acquisition is, we use that one anytime we're doing like a major repair on a building.
So you're not actually acquiring an additional building.
No,
You essentially could call this repairs.
you could, yes, it's really driven by, so if you see those last four digits, the 0520, that's what drives the description, but buildings acquisition is really any major maintenance type project or improvement. So it's not truly a repair, it's enhancing the building. But it could also be purchasing a building. It would use that as well. But that's not the intent here.
Under that same line there of building acquisition, is the Woodburn School District renting or leasing any other buildings that we do not own?
Yes, yes.
How many?
Technically, it's two separate properties. There's the Cipriano Preschool
Okay.
across the way. I think is that just one building on that property, or is it?
Just one building on that property.
And then the
And
building
we're
in the parking
we're
lot.
leasing that. The school
Correct.
district is leasing that.
Correct.
Okay. So our staff are at that location. Our staff are, okay.
Yep.
And then the second location?
Is the one in the parking lot just over there.
Oh, right. next.
No,
No.
it's in the same
Mhm.
parking lot. Yeah. Sorry.
Same location.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's in the same area. Yes, it's not the building right next to us. It's the one on the.
So
opposite
we
side.
don't own those as a district. Those are just
Correct.
leased at this point in time. Okay.
Correct.
Is that where this budget goes to, is to help pay some of those rental or
No.
leases or?
No,
So
that's in
not
the
the
general.
acquisition? Okay.
That's in two separate locations.
Okay.
So the preschool is funded through the Preschool Promise, through
Okay.
Title 1A and through Title 1C. So that lease is paid for out of our special revenue funds. The other building is out of the general fund. That lease ends next in 25-26.
And we're planning to renew that, right?
Not presently.
So where would, if not that building, where would those programs potentially?
We'd evaluate the spaces that we have available, and those programs would occupy some of the current spaces we have.
And what spaces would that potentially?
It could potentially be some spaces here in the district office or other spaces around the district.
How many classrooms are affected by that?
None.
None.
Oh, okay.
How much are we paying for the rental on the former building that was options counseling?
Oh, the one.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I believe the rent on that one is like 75,000 a year.
And how many people are staffed there currently?
I don't know off the top of my head.
But Sarah, that lease is ending soon, isn't it?
Yes, it's ending in the middle of next year of 25-26.
What month is that?
I believe it's February that it's ending.
Okay, thank you.
So it's really not going to be a major impact.
Not to students.
No,
It won't
there's
impact
no impact to
students.
students.
But there would be for the preschool.
We're not changing anything with the preschool.
Oh,
There's
that
no
was-
impact
okay.
to our students.
Thank you.
And so, question, so the funds being utilized to pay for that lease for half of the year?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because it's until February, so the remaining funds, where are those being shifted to?
They're not being shifted. They're just encompassed within all of the general fund expenditures.
I don't think I understand.
So they're being utilized to continue to support staffing, benefits, supplies.
yeah, it's rolling over into the general fund. It's not going from here to there. It's just going back into
It's
the.
going back into the general fund.
Mm-hmm, correct.
So I'm assuming that there's a plan to how those funds will be used.
Yes, it's all encompassed within the overall general fund budget.
Got it.
And we have staff there, right? Did I miss that?
Yes,
We
we
do
have staff there.
Yes.
Mhm.
Is that district staff or is it other programs within the district?
They're district staff who are utilize those spaces. It's like office spaces.
So I'm aware it's special ed. What else is housed over there?
Special ed and IT are over there presently.
Thank you.
But you don't know how many staff are there, so it comes out to be about $6,250 a month rent, and just more or less how many staff are housed in that building for that price.
I don't know off the top of my head how many staff. With SPED, it's a little different because they have staff going in and out. So even though they're district staff, they are out into the buildings. They utilize that as office space when they need it, when they need a quiet
Oh,
space.
okay.
So like our school psychs, things like that. That's the main hub for our IT space as well. So all of them are housed there. But because of the transient nature of the SPED staff, I don't think I could give you that number off the top of my head.
And about how many IT staff? You said all of them. Do you know about how many that is?
Yes, give me one moment. 8.
Wow, that surprises me.
When we look at the 75, I think you said 75,000 a year for that. Doesn't sound bad for an office space like that. With 6 or 8 employees there, are we at capacity here at the district office? Or I remember IT used to be, of course, at French Prairie, and of course, I could imagine they've outgrown that. Is there other, just like what we would do if we're not renewing the lease, we're gonna have to relocate other programs here. Are we thinking ahead? Again, just every penny counts, and I think it's important that if you could save 75,000, that's almost a lighting project for, right? Like, again, just in general. And if we're talking about six to 8 staff, do we not have that capacity as a district to relocate them?
Yeah, I think we're taking that approach, like you said, Rick, around like how every penny counts and how do we maximize the resources we have available to us. By looking at some other spaces that we do own and wouldn't cost us money to be able to relocate those folks into, continuing to maintain services, but reducing our spending to increase our efficiency.
Yeah. Okay.
So the preschool building, what's our annual lease on that?
Oh, I'd have to double check on that one because it's split through so many different funds.
Oh,
Yeah. And that one's based upon the number of classrooms we utilize. So if funding were cut in a certain area, we're allowed to drop a classroom if we need to. That one's really program specific.
because it's coming from Title I and A and C.
Correct. Mhm.
I just need to go back to the building that's formerly Options Counseling again. Previously, Mr. Morlock wanted to buy that building. And at that time, he indicated the reason why we needed that building is because we were so overgrown and staff was in closets. And so I'm just wondering, were some people already transplanted and removed from that building? Because if we were busting at the seams and we had to put everybody in there, previously we were told that, staff was working out of closets, and that was one of the reasons to support the lease of that building. I'm just wondering what has changed where we are now deciding not to renew and not moving forward, and there's such a small number of people occupying that that big space. Can you maybe address that?
Well, I could just a little bit about the staff, and like we shared in the budget message, there was a reduction of 1 administrator, and over the past couple of years there have been reductions of central office staff. Not to say like, oh, the central office is bursting with, space. That's not the case either. I don't want to give that impression, but we believe that we can relocate folks into spaces and not have people working out of closets, but have everybody a workspace that will allow them to do their job as best their ability.
Is there a way to rent a smaller space? I mean, it's pretty roomy over there. I don't know. Am I making myself clear? Is there less footage available to rent?
I don't believe so. Okay. So I'm going to move us on to page A49. This is our debt service funds. It's as you expect, it's to pay our debt. We don't have a lot in here. I'm going to skip over Fund 304 and move back to that in a moment. Fund 314 is our general obligation bond fund. This fund takes in property tax revenue that we levy, specifically to pay this debt service. Fund 316 is our full faith and credit obligation. This is paid for by a transfer from the general fund and a transfer from our special revenue funds. This project, if you recall, paid for the addition at the high school, the additional building, and the build out of the CTE space. Fund 304 is energy loans. Each month we receive payment. It's called a public purpose charge. You probably see it on your electricity bill. Well, we get a portion of that, and it's to support energy efficient projects. We have some projects that we want to do next year, and all of those projects, just so you know, are authorized through the state programming. We have to apply to be able to spend funds under that. So that's why you'll see this year a fund modification, which is a transfer out into our reserve funds, our capital funds, to be able to do that if it's authorized. So that's why that's a little different this year. There's some lighting projects that are wanting to be done, so this gives us the flexibility to be able to do that. Any questions on debt service?
In the scope of the lighting projects, like I keep thinking of the LED lights, right? Because I think many school districts across Oregon are moving that direction and upgrading and cost efficiency, energy efficiency, all of that. Is that encompassed just to building specific, or is that just as a district we could use that for any lighting?
It's specific to the program that's authorized under it. Mm-hmm.
So going back to, you said the energy from our electrical bills. Our electrical bills is always going up. So, and they're always funneling or adding fees right and left. So if they're increasing it, so we should be receiving more funds.
The public purpose charge is a percentage of the bill. We have no say in what that is. They just pass that portion along to us as they collect it.
Any other questions on the debt service funds?
All right, now I'm going to move us to nutrition services, which is on page A45 through A47. We account for this fund separately. This is our child nutrition program. This is what feeds our kids. You'll see if you look at the revenue side, some numbers that are not on there for 24-25 that you'll see proposed back in 25-26. And the school nutrition program at the state asked for us to account for it a little differently in 24-25. We came back to them within this year and kind of explained how that wasn't working, how it made the most sense to encapsulate all those funds within this nutrition services fund. They agreed, so that's why you'll see that back on there. But we did have to move out a different portion, the CACFP meals, out of 25-26 into a different source. So that's why you don't see that there. Again, all of this, the expenditures and revenue are dedicated to the child nutrition program and everything that goes on underneath that. They're really not asking for any changes within this program. FTE is slated to remain the same for next year. So nothing terribly exciting happening
So,
there.
$1 billion have been cut from schools and food banks, and I'm not quite sure. I think it's 660 million for schools to purchase local foods. Is that, and I would guess that maybe not next year, but the future year,
Yeah,
right?
so keep in mind, everything that you're hearing that's happening at the federal government with the president's most recent budget proposal impacts our 26-27
Right.
school year. So you're not going to see changes reflected here in this. This is all our current understanding and operations of what is coming down.
Okay, and then is knowing that at least there's a strong probability,
Mhm.
I mean, something could change. Is there any way to be prudent in how we would make up whatever, or we just have an idea of what that would mean for us?
Our planning would be more how we can shift expenditures to still meet the requirements we need to with the funding sources we have. So in our, within our child nutrition program, we're not allowed to reserve over a certain amount of funding. It needs to go back into the programming for staffing and food for kids. So we can't set aside over a
Future.
certain, correct, we can't set aside funds to offset for those sorts of things. We have to address the program needs and requirements as they come. So no, we couldn't make any changes in next school year. We would have to adjust for 26-27 specifically. Will we start doing research as to what we can do to mitigate any cost increases? Absolutely.
Okay, that's,
But we can't plan for it within the budget, within this budget.
are there any projections as to food price, given the farmers in Oregon, if we are purchasing?
No, not presently.
Okay,
Do we,
yes, Kilby.
sourcing the food,
Mhm.
is that contracted like on at the district level or the
Yeah.
schools?
No, it's
individually?
all centralized purchasing. The schools do their own purchasing through the district-wide contracts because it's really unique to see even what some of the schools, the different preferences are,
Mhm.
what some of the students like over other ones. A popular dish at Lincoln is not popular at Nellie.
And-
So the schools order under the district-wide
Okay,
contract.
so the district's supplying the food that they've and those contracts, are those done for the next school year and
Yes.
that's all set? Or, okay.
And do we prioritize local providers? Do we try to buy
We try
locally?
to,
Uh-huh.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yep. And we have several different providers. We're not just going to Cisco for everything. There's a lot of different providers we have contracts with for different purchasing purposes.
I have a question. Just the travel out of district, what is that? Last year we budgeted $250. This year it's 40,000. And I see that 250 was significant drop from the previous year. So I'm just curious, what does that entail, that travel out of district?
So all of our nutrition services staff are required to have annual and biannual certifications. So because our program has done so well in the past, they prioritize going to the annual nutrition conference and sending as many staff members as they can. So last year they sent, I believe, 25 nutrition staff members to their annual conference where they talk about updated federal regulations for meal service, things like that.
Okay, and is there an option of doing it more locally?
There's not. No, there is a local conference that they attend, and the only cost for that is mileage. But that's more specific as to talking about what each school's doing individually. Mhm.
But the certification can't be done online. It has to be done in person.
It
at
doesn't
the
have to
conference.
be, no, but because they've had the funds and they've been able to make the improvements that they've needed, they've prioritized this. Again, our nutrition services staff is generally some of our lowest paid staff in the district. So anytime they can do something kind of unique like this, we feel like it's great to prioritize for them.
Sure. And then just another one, the dues and the fees down at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I see it's back up to where it's kind of been, but last year it was significantly dropped. Just help me understand the dues and the fees.
That was more of a planning piece in 24, 25. That was just poor planning. 25, 26, the dues and fees encompass a lot of things there. It's like the site certifications to be able to serve food. It's food handlers cards. It's just the certifications we need to be able to serve food for the kids.
Okay.
Is what the dues and fees are.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
How about rentals? The equipment we're renting or?
Oh, sorry. Yes, it's equipment we're renting. It's also some, why is it, like the coats and the aprons and things like that.
Oh, I see.
That are laundered as well. That falls under
Okay.
rentals.
Yeah, that's kind of jumped up a lot. Well, no, I guess it was 40,000,
Yep.
24, 25. Okay.
Question. When do you predict we'll be needing more computer hardware? It seems like we haven't spent any money on that for a few years.
There's not a lot that's done with computer hardware in the nutrition services program. And presently, IT has placed everyone on a replacement cycle. So their hardware is updated within the replacement cycle.
Okay.
So those expenditures are in the general fund 2660. If it's something specific that nutrition services is requesting outside of the replacement cycle, it would come out of here. But they didn't have any needs that they identified presently.
I also see building acquisition on there.
Yep.
How's that apply to nutrition?
That's a good question. So that would be any sort of construction that needs to be done within the kitchen. So if they need to remove a wall, replace something, they would fall under that line.
So it's not covered under general maintenance, under facilities or anything like that?
Sometimes it is to a certain extent. If it's overall building maintenance, you'll see it in maintenance. But if it's something specific they're wanting, that's kind of over and beyond the general maintenance, it would come out of their budget.
And I don't know how our school district does, but does each school have their own specific budget for these types of scenarios?
Each
or
kitchen?
Are we small enough that it all falls on the district office?
So it all falls within our nutrition services department.
Okay.
So our nutrition services supervisor is in the buildings every single day and liaisoning with the people in the kitchen. So she's on top of those needs.
Can you talk about the other purchase services?
Other purchase services is subs generally.
Oh, okay.
So the substitutes we pay for.
Just donated commodities.
Donated commodities, each year we receive a donation from the federal government of a certain amount of commodities. We have to record the income and the related expense within our budget. So they donate the commodities, it comes in as revenue, and we turn around with that donation and purchase commodities from the federal government within that, that same bucket. So it's just how it has to be recorded within our accounting programming.
District-wide, are we sitting fairly updated with our kitchens all around?
Our kitchens do a fantastic job. I would say we're one of the few programs within the state that our nutrition services runs in the black consistently.
Or not?
They do a fantastic job. And they're constantly having people come in to look at how our kitchens run and how well they're doing.
Good.
Our current nutrition services supervisor is the president-elect for the State Nutrition Association, so she's heavily involved in what's going on at the state and federal levels as well. So we have a fantastic program.
So with the food cost increases,
Mhm.
that's already been accounted for.
Correct.
Any other questions on nutrition? Okay. Lead us.
Okay. And I apologize, but do you mind if we take like a 3-minute recess?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. So we will go for a 3-minute recess. I believe we have everyone back, so it's, oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, go right ahead. You're fine. You're fine. So we're back on the record
Thank you so much.
and, yes, so
Okay.
we will continue.
So now we're gonna jump into special revenue. I'm gonna talk about special revenue in general for a little bit, because it's so unique. So if you start at A27 through A44, those are all of our special revenue pages, excluding nutrition services. So again, special revenues are extremely unique in that each grant that we receive is recorded under special revenue. So they're all rolled up into this one neat little pretty package that's presented in front of you. But within that is dozens of grants. And each grant is very specific and prescriptive as to what we can use it for. So I'll give Title 1A as an example. There's federal allowability under Title 1A as to what we can spend our funds on. We have to submit a detailed application to the state each year that they review. The school goes through a process with their leadership team to develop their school level budgets. All of those amounts are rolled up into one application that we submit to ODE for their approval. They review it to make sure everything's allowable and ties to the school improvement and district improvement plans. And then we can only expend funds in those areas. So our Director of Teaching and Learning does a fantastic job of reviewing all of the expenses as they come and says, does this align with what's in your school improvement plan? You noted that you are going to spend $300 on after school interventions. You're proposing now to spend $400. What's changed? And then if we do have to make changes within that budget, we have to go back and resubmit to the state for their approval. So it's a really detailed process for the vast majority of these grants. At the last board meeting before, the board approved our integrated plan, which covers the student investment account, the high school success grant, the early literacy grant, and the early intervention and something system grant. Sorry, I forget what the other I is. And interventions, that sounds right. It covers all of those grants. So we went through a huge process with community members, with teacher feedback, with classified feedback, student focal groups to be able to write those grants, submit that data to the board, that we then submit it to ODE for their review and approval. After that, after it's reviewed and hopefully approved through ODE, we then have to submit quarterly reports to them as to what we're spending on. So we give them a detailed line item budget and we submit our expenditures to them quarterly as to how it aligns with what we have put in our budget. So everything you see in here is tied directly to some sort of outside oversight. We don't get to willy-nilly spend these funds, and there's huge layers of review. Even after we do that, generally every other year, we'll have a state review and audit of our expenditures for federal programs. So for example, last year we had one for Title 1C where they went through and looked at all of our expenditures and we had to justify how and why we spent all of these things. So there's a lot of review that comes from outside organizations and there's a lot of data that we submit to these granting agencies. Devin, you look like you had a question.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, if we do make changes, which doesn't sound like we should, how long does that take generally?
So
Them
it
to reapprove
depends.
or-
If we wanted to make a change to what we're doing in Title 1A, for example, ODE is usually pretty responsive.
Mhm.
So we'd submit that change. We'd say, hey, can you reopen our application? We want to change this specific line. And they would do that. We would generally hear back from them within the week if it's
Oh, okay.
approved or not.
So it's not like adding 6 months or something.
No, they're usually pretty quick to get back to us. And again, the changes that we request would all be allowable under the grant. We wouldn't come to them and say, hey, we want to, buy a bouncy house. They'd say, no, not allowable under Title I. And that's a pretty quick answer from them.
the special funds for that was added this year?
Special functions? So that's actually the nutrition services catering program. So anytime they cater a program that's outside of their normal operations, so if they're doing parent night that a grant is paying for example, so anytime we're having food at a special event, a grant can generally pay for that. It would come back into here.
Instead of a nutritional, it would be in this one?
Yeah. If it goes into the nutrition service program, it's then required to fall under all of the federal food programming guidelines that relate to the nutrition services program.
So like, for instance, when there's the parent teaching program that goes on for 3 months or something.
A FAMU.
Yeah, the family learning.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that would fall under this.
Before taking a deeper dive into special revenue, just for my clarification, normally, for the most part, grants don't cover staffing positions or personnel.
They do.
Oh, they
Yeah.
do. Okay. Okay.
We leverage a lot of our grants to fund staffing.
Do you know what again, just a general overview, what's our staffing right now levels impacted by grants at this point for the district?
Yeah, tell you that. We have 85.88 FTE out of grants. And you'll see that on page A44.
Okay. 8.
And that's across the board. So we've kind of talked about grants. So, and again, I preface this conversation with that because I think a lot of people see this money and they're like, well, can't we? No,
Yeah.
we really
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
We can only spend preschool promise dollars on the preschool students that are eligible under preschool promise. We can't move it to hire whatever. So it's very prescriptive.
And that's why I asked the question, because sometimes grants are specific,
Mhm.
and there's some grants that are not for personnel, they're for
Yes, we have
right?
some.
So-
So for example, we had, it's called a TAP grant from the state when they had us do the lead water testing. Again, that was just for the lead water testing within the district. Again, all of the grants are very specific as to what we can spend it on. Our larger grants, Title 1A, the Student Investment Account, High School Success, all of those have staffing under them.
Okay. And just for clarification, Sarah, you said it was 85 FTEs that are,
85.88.
okay. All right, thank you. That's a lot.
It is. So again, as we look through this, I'm not going to linger on a lot of these. Something I will say is FTE will sometimes fluctuate between the general fund and special revenue, depending upon what they do. If a staff member is funded out of a federal program, they're required to do biannual certifications that talk about their funding levels. So whenever possible, we like to sole source fund an FTE out of a grant because then they're solely operating under that grant premise. We don't have to have them certify, oh yes, I spent only 0.5 of my FTE doing this program. No, my entire FTE function fell under this program. So it's a little easier for the staff members. So sometimes you'll see staffing shift between the general fund and special revenue funds. And that's just really for planning purposes.
So for food services, there's certified staff. Classified staff and managerial. But then it's also under nutritional as well. They're both.
No, so Fund 205, the nutrition services is just the school nutrition program. You won't see that under special revenue. That one's totally separate. We do have some nutrition services related items in special revenue because they don't fall under the school nutrition program. But there's no school nutrition FTE in special revenue. Yes.
So, the special revenue, a good portion of it comes from grants. And do we have a grant coordinator who's out looking for new grant opportunities? And is there grants out there that we just haven't gone for in the past? And are there opportunities for new grants? Who's out there looking for it?
So are there opportunities for new grants?
Many of these grants are presented to us, from the state, and we jump on them when there's a grant available, and our staff works to put together the application. Some of them are competitive, some of them are not, but we are, really eyes and ears open for when there is an opportunity to have a new grant. We take advantage of applying for it.
So it's fair to say that this grant value is pretty maxed out as far as opportunities to get more grants.
Yes.
There's not an opportunity here to get more grants and build that number up and.
Not really. Occasionally you'll see a grant in the board packet, and it's like the MAPS grants, which are $250, and they're really small. But overall, like that would really expand district operations. No, this is it. No. So as you can see on the revenue side, most of our grants are split between federal and state revenue. We generally have more state grants than federal grants at this point in time. So as we can dive through, you'll see the different functions. The 1,000 functions are truly instruction functions. So some of the FTE you'll see, for example, in the first lines, the 21111, some of those are, for example, the art teachers at the elementary schools would fall under those line items. I want to call out function 1131. Those would be some of our CTE teachers that on page 30 that are funded from the high school success grant, for example. On page 31, you'll see function 1140. That's our preschool program. And again, those amounts are driven by the granting agencies giving us funding for those programs. Again, that's Preschool Promise, Title 1A, and Title 1C. That funds our preschool program.
I have a question, Sarah, on that. So I notice where it says 0.80 and 0.80,
Mm-hmm.
that's we're keeping that, right?
In 1140?
Yes.
Yes, that is the plan.
And then under that is
Mhm.
21.79, and then reducing that to 18.73 FTE.
Correct.
Can you speak to that? Or can Juan speak to that change in that?
Mhm. So those are just, so the 0.8 is the licensed staff that we have supporting the preschool program. The 21.79 down to the 18.73 is related to the staffing ratios we have to have in the programs under Preschool Promise and Title 1A. So the 18.73 is the staffing that we can afford under the grant.
So that's a reduction in FTE for next year.
In that programming, yes. We're not recommending riffing or eliminating. This is just natural attrition in that program.
So then that gap is covered, then we would have to cover that through general fund?
If we wanted to increase the FTE. Mhm.
Okay.
So presently, we like to operate the preschool within the grant amounts that we have because we don't get state school fund for preschool students.
And our staffing levels for preschool programs are aligned with the guidelines that are necessary to, student to adult ratios.
Racial. Mhm.
Correct.
So my question on that line item is that we're reducing staff by about 3, but increasing salary by about $70,000. Is that because it includes like the PERS and the, health insurance, and we're anticipating, the negotiations coming up? Because it seems to me that there should be an increase, but also decrease. So to increase that by 70,000, what's happening there?
That's solely attributable to the staff that are in that programming. So when we do the budget for these, we take the staff that are presently there. So if we have some long-term tenured staff that are staying on, their salaries are quite a bit higher. If it's newer staff that have left and aren't coming back, then the cost savings isn't as great there. So it's really attributed to the staff that are in that program.
Okay.
So yes, while you might see an FTE reduction, the cost still might be greater.
And this is gonna cover like the PERS and other benefits?
Yes.
Yes, that's why.
Yeah,
okay.
the full amount that you see under there. Yes, we'll cover everything.
And Sarah, is there a grant we did not receive that would normally have covered that amount?
For preschool?
Yes.
No, we received the same grants, the Preschool Promise, Title 1A and Title 1C.
Thank you.
Okay. So moving along, you'll see several different SPED functions. Those kind of fluctuate throughout the year based upon our student needs. We don't like to allocate a ton of FTE to IDEA, which is the special revenue that's in here, as we like to set those funds aside for any high cost incoming students. We like to operate our special ed program within the general fund with some sets aside for incoming students. So if we go to page 35, 1299, that's really our after school club programming there. We will be in the 3rd year of the grant, I believe. You'll also see that we put some money aside in function 1400, and that's because we will be receiving a state summer school grant. At the time, we didn't know what that amount would be, so we budgeted a little high. The grant has actually come in at about $793,000 for that specific grant source. So that's lower than we budgeted, but that's okay. We only spend to the grant amount. We won't spend to what's in the budget document. So we did receive that, so kind of exciting.
So that's not Title I, that is more extended, available to more students.
So this grant has some specific requirements as to the students that are eligible to participate. I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so this is a new grant that was just received. And so the summer school is being expanded to target additional kindergarteners, first graders, 5th graders, and some of our middle school students as well. And we're making use of our benchmarking data, through our reading assessments, to identify students who are going to be invited to participate in the summer school program. So we'll expand more students being served in summer school with this grant. Yeah, primarily in reading. So we're making most use of our reading data to identify who to invite for that program.
And again, that's a state level grant. The state legislature has approved that one. They're providing the criteria for participation in that. I want to jump ahead to page 38. Oh.
Can we go back to 33 for the tuition, the public alternative programs? Can you elaborate on that?
The 1281, you bet. So this encompasses early college options. The High School Success Grant pays for that.
Thank you.
Is that where Willamette Technical
The Willamette Career Academy?
Career, I'm sorry.
No, that does not fall
Okay.
under that one.
Okay.
Hi, Sarah, can you tell me where that is? I can't find that.
The Willamette Career Academy or the
Early college.
the early college, that is on page A33, right at the bottom.
Public alternative programs?
Yep.
And so is this what covers students like tuition if they were taking classes, for example, at Chemeketa?
Correct.
And so, okay.
So for instance, it could be considered early jumpstart?
It's early college is the name of the programming.
How many students does that typically cover?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but it is an application process at the high school. So high school students work with their counselors and advisors to apply for the early college program. But yeah, I don't have that number off the top of my head of how many students are enrolled in that program.
So given that there's an increase or proposed increase, does this mean that we are having more students interested in this program?
Yes and no. Compared to our actuals for 23, 24, 25,000 is just a more reasonable expenditures for the students accessing the program. We did have a bit of an increase in participation in 23, 24. So yes, there was an increase in participation, but the amounts in 25, 26 reflect the current participation.
How much per student it costs for that, or it depends on the number of classes?
Yeah, I think it's both. It varies by student and the number of classes that they're enrolled in.
Correct.
So it's basically from freshmen to the seniors, regardless.
No, primarily for juniors,
Nice.
juniors and seniors.
So I want to jump over to page A38 because I have a feeling Ryan has a question on this one because he brought up counselors earlier. So if you notice in the general fund, there was a reduction in the counseling FTE. It's not a true FTE reduction. The same number of counselors will remain next year as there is this year. But this year, because we had some flexibility within the SIA funds, the student investment account funds, we moved counselors over there to save money within the general fund. So next year, we're proposing to do the same, to have those counselors within the student investment account. So that's why you see that FTE shift. But again, I'll reiterate, we are not recommending reducing the number of school counselors we have in the district. It will remain the same as it currently is.
So I can't see what you're pointing to, but I am looking at something different, which is page 811. That speaks to the counseling piece. Are you referring
Correct.
to the 17
Correct. And if you,
reduction to 13.5?
yep. So if you look at in the general fund on the page you're looking at and page A38 in the special revenue fund, you'll see that the difference is made up for there. So the number of counselors will remain the same.
And where are those funds coming from now or next year?
The student investment account.
Is that different from funds connected to the integrative plan?
It's not. The student investment account falls under the integrated plan.
Oh, falls under, okay.
Yeah, the integrated plan is the name that encapsulates the student investment account, or SIA. You'll hear me say high school success, or Measure 98, as a lot of you probably hear, early literacy, and EIAS.
So if this FTE is now or being proposed to be covered under the SIA, has
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
for the future, right? For next year, that's the proposal. And so is anything, are other FTEs within the SIA account being impacted?
We do have one position that we won't be refilling due to attrition. This person is leaving the district, so we won't be refilling that position. But no, the main reduction in expenditures in the student investment account is the extended time that Juan had talked about previously. We had, several $100,000 in extended time in the student investment account that will be dedicated to FTE now.
So just to clarify, counseling is like, career counselors and
Mhm.
just regulars.
Correct.
And then this psychological counseling services, that's more.
Those are our school psychologists.
Psychology.
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
yes, they have a specific programming that they do.
And that's throughout the district.
Correct. Yes, they work district-wide.
So help me understand, Sarah. So that was paid from the general funds, and now will be paid under this grant.
Correct.
Does that impact at all monies that schools will receive?
No, it will not.
Okay.
The schools are actually getting more in their school-wide allocations from the student investment account next year. So again, Rosie brought up the psychological counseling services, 2143. Those are school psychs. That's a great observation. Those are paid for out of IDEA, the Individuals with Disability Education Act funds. Those are ones that we dedicate to that funding source. Not a lot of changes otherwise. You'll see reductions in instructional staff development. We had several of those instructional coaches that were recaptured and moved back to the classroom to make up some funding gaps there. So, and that has already occurred. So you're seeing that reflected now within the budget.
So, positions literally just got, moved around
Mhm.
versus just eliminated.
Correct. We are not, again, recommending any sort of RIF or anything like that next year. All the changes and moves we are making is through just natural attrition within the district.
Was there any significance, financial significance? You know, normally if licensed staff moves into a coaching position, there's usually either a stipend or a differential paid. And if we're moving instructional coaches back to classroom, is there any impact, financial impact or savings because of?
No, our instructional coaches don't receive a stipend or anything of that nature.
So it's just a special position with no incentives or?
Correct. They are just doing a different set of work.
Yeah, there are, within the collective bargaining agreement, are differentials that the staff, licensed staff could qualify for based on language or special education.
Mhm.
So there are some stipends and differentials for folks, but it's not tied to a position. It's tied to the qualifications that that person has. So if they're bilingual, they might qualify for the differential for language. If they have a special education endorsement, they qualify for the differential there. And, so it's not tied to individual positions. It's tied to the what qualifications that person
Qualifications or
has.
certifications that they might have.
You're referring to the you're referring to the instructional staff development, no?
Mhm.
That's
Correct.
okay.
So again, when you hear changes at the federal government, when we come back for 26, 27, the vast majority of changes you'll see are within the special revenue funds. Again, we're not ready to talk about that yet, as we don't know what the true impacts to us will be, but that's where you're going to see some big changes. Any other questions about special revenue funds before we jump into the meat and potatoes of the general fund?
On the community services,
Mhm.
there seems to be like quite a big difference between last year and this year, or proposed year, excuse me.
Yes, so the district has definitely prioritized family and community engagement. And so you'll see the budget shifts within that.
And in what kind of services or?
This would just be related specifically to events that are held that the districts and schools put on. So the schools had a big shift this year for more family and community events. I don't know if you've noticed within your kids' schools, but there have been a lot more things going on this year. So the cost has come out of these items.
So like family night,
Yep.
STEM,
Yep,
okay.
exactly. Yep, you got it.
Was that through the after-school program?
Which night specifically?
There was a STEM night,
The STEM festival.
the STEM festival.
Oh, the STEM festival. That's the after school club helps plan that.
Okay.
But that comes out of the student investment account grant, not out of the after school club grant.
So I can't recall really seeing any maybe one or two teachers there with only STEM related teachers. I didn't even see science teachers there.
There's a STEM planning committee that meets to pull the put those programs on. Our after school club staff have been a tremendous part of that for years, and they did a great work this year to pull the event together. But it is open to different educators to be able to join and be a part of it.
Sure, but, so if you're on the committee, would you be expected to be there and participate in the night?
Yeah, if at all possible, yeah. And so
Okay.
these are folks, it's an open invitation to different teachers who want to be a part of that planning committee and want to be there. So it is one of those extended hour opportunities.
Okay, so so people on the committee would be, planning would also be expected to attend, and they would be reimbursed as an after hours
For their extended time.
for their extended time. Is there a limit on expended hours per teacher, or is it just in general?
Usually they have a limit. They would say you're eligible for up to X amount within whatever plan it is.
Sure, is there a per year per teacher?
No, so
After hours?
each
Okay.
is specific to the programming. So for example, when you have a family night at the elementary school, the principal will say, hey, staff, I would really like to have you here. If you can come, the event is from this time to this time. You'll be eligible for 2 hours of extended time for coming to the event.
And these are primarily volunteer events for staff to say,
a
hey,
lot of
hey,
them
I
are.
want to be there.
Mhm.
No, personal invitations.
Sarah, just
Yeah.
for clarification, I see executive administration services and then I see other executive administration. What's the difference between other and then just the general?
And there's
out of
not a
curiosity.
lot. It's more of just a tracking component for
Is
those.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that within the building or is that district office or is that?
That's district level.
That's district level. Okay.
That relates to the wellness committee. That particular function. Yep.
Gotcha.
Was that 2320? 41 and 42.
A41 and 42.
And then grade 42, yeah.
Glad you remember.
I didn't know if it had some significant difference just
Mm.
because of the other, right? Like,
No.
okay, thank you.
And again, we track these differently internally. So for example, Title I is Fund 201. Title III is Function 249. Student Investment Account is Fund 243. So all of that's tracked separately internally, but you guys see it all rolled up here under the 200 functions or funds, excuse me. You ready to jump into the general fund?
Let's do it.
Do it.
That's the last section.
This is, general fund is the last section, but don't get your hopes up because it's the biggest, so. So general fund, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
St. Luke's, do we have a partnership with them or?
Yes, we do have a partnership with them. We're required under federal law to consult with them and pass along a portion of our Title I-A funds.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
So any student that would have been a Woodburn School District student, they're allocated an amount based upon those students. And again, we're required under federal law to pass along those funds.
Is that how they sometimes offer scholarships?
No, they're not allowed to. And again, so this is under Title I. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Okay.
They have to submit their programming under Title I, so everything there has to be applicable. We submit their expenditure budget request to the state as well. So right now they're funding a portion of a reading specialist out of Title I, out of their Title I allocation.
But that's under their budget, not ours.
It's under our budget because we get the funds from the state, which we have to pass along to them. So we have to record that in our budget.
It would be the same thing if, it would be similar to if we had a program with homeschool. And so if we got any, just for example, I don't know, because I haven't got dug into that, but if we got any funding of a grant that associated with a homeschool, then we would have to allocate that towards homeschool.
Any grant that we have to pass along to another agency or organization, yes, we record that. So for example, if you look at page A9, you'll see charter schools, 11288, 360 charter school payments. We receive Arthur Academy's state school fund on their behalf because those students technically belong to Woodburn School District. So we receive the revenue, but we turn around and pay Arthur Academy for the students that they have. So that's why you see the expenditure there. So that's what you're seeing with St. Luke's as well. Those students are technically Woodburn School District students. We have to turn around and pay St. Luke's per federal regulation under Title 1A.
And charter school services just for Arthur.
Just for Arthur, that's the only charter school within our district.
Because the reason that I look at that, that's a significant jump from the 23, 24, right?
It is.
And then to 110. And it looks like, is it biennium that? we do
Are
that?
you looking on page 9? Is that
I'm
what?
looking at A44
Okay.
though, yeah.
I just want to make
Mhm.
sure, sorry, we're talking about the same ones. The 3301. We won't expend that much to them. We put that in there, again, to be careful as to what might come down. Because programming under Title 1A could change in what we have to allocate to private schools. So there's a little wiggle room built in there. Their poverty counts actually have gone up a little bit at St. Luke's. So that's also
There's like
reflected.
85,000, 90,000.
It won't be that
wiggle
much.
room.
It won't. Presently, it's about 50,000, but again,
So
with
do-
concerns what might come down at the federal level regarding private schools, we wanted to make sure we had a little bit buffer built in.
So.
And what
just-
is that, Sarah? What you just mentioned that I think I
Sorry?
heard you say something about something coming down from the federal connecting to private schools.
We're just hearing a lot about changes in federal funding that might impact how we interact with private schools. So again, it's just putting a little buffer into that in case the regulations regarding how we have to allocate changes. But I don't imagine it would change much, if any. But I think it's smart to have a little wiggle room in there.
Okay, and so if those funds aren't used, they go back to where?
They just don't come in.
Oh,
They're
okay.
just not allocated. Yeah, it's just a pass through.
Thank you.
Correct.
And just to clarify, as a teacher, I actually had this at a different district. So this is like speech pathology, special ed, reading support that come into the schools to support those, and it was through a Title I at that time. And I believe it's federal is making it usable, but it's depending on the state. And it's not necessarily preventing, it's just loosening, as I understand it, for states and how they can use those monies.
So again, Title 1A, the state follows the federal guidelines,
Right.
which then we follow based upon their administration. So right now, those haven't changed.
Right.
But a lot can happen before September.
Just real quick back on that St. Luke's. I understand wiggle room totally. Do we need that much wiggle room?
Probably
if
not.
it costs about 50,000, I'm always about wiggle room.
Yeah,
especially financially.
so we
but-
could reduce that if the budget committee felt more comfortable reducing that. But then my recommendation would be conversely to reduce the revenue. We wouldn't increase
Yeah.
expenditures in another area
Yeah.
because that is solely tied to the revenue
Oh, okay.
piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So again, like I mentioned, I'll bring your attention back to page A9 where you see the charter school payments. It is a pretty significant increase, but again, we saw a pretty significant increase in our overall state school fund. So that's why you see that big jump there.
Right above that in alternative education, what would that be?
That would be, we had some special education students that were being paid for their programming outside of the district. That's no longer encapsulated here. Those students were paying through the ESD now, not through this portion. So that's why there's no proposed amount for 25-26.
But the one above that, the alternative education?
Alternative education is Success High School. They operate under their own specific function. Bless you. Okay, so I'm actually going to jump us back to the front of this book
Okay.
as we move through, please. There's just a brief overview on page 3 if you want to read that, but let's go ahead and jump in on page 4. I like graphs. I think graphs are a lot easier and a little more user-friendly. So I want to talk through some of those. The first grant you see on that page is the State School Fund General Purpose Grant per ADMW. And this is the general fund grant across the state, the amount that's allocated per pupil across the state. So as you can see, that has slowly but surely gone up over the past years. We haven't had any big jumps, but it's consistently gone up. We're almost at, we're just at the $11,000 per student mark right now with the State School Fund grant. So we hope to continue to see that climb. It would be great if it was even higher, but here we are.
So just to touch back on, how we discussed about the absence and me being as a parent and us being gone for Easter, and then my daughter went on a field trip with her girlfriends for a birthday, and I had to excuse her. And right away, my thought was, okay, she's having an extra day, which is going to be 6 days. So like, how much money
As
is
long as
that?
we don't have to
to
drop
me?
her, as long as we don't have to
Like-
drop them after the 10 days.
Becau-
But
that's-
again, when you look at each student that we're allocated, the cost for losing a student is approximately for next year $11,000. So when you look at how we're operating in that regard, the $11,000 per student needs to not only cover that student's classroom teacher, so elementary is just the easiest example as we're looking at that. It not only needs to cover that classroom teacher, but it needs to cover the supplies for that classroom. It needs to cover the textbooks for that classroom. It needs to cover the electricity for that classroom, for the principal that supports, for the building secretary that supports. So that amount, while you may think, oh, that's fantastic, you put, 20 kids in a class, that's a lot of money to cover that classroom. Yes, but it has to cover everything else that's associated with that as well. So
With the 2 weeks, that's non-excused. Like there's a medical,
it doesn't matter if it's excused or unexcused.
so a child with a
10 consecutive
medical
days.
situation, so would they be re-enrolled?
Once they come back, they'd be re-enrolled.
And then it wouldn't count against the future,
Not against the future, but those 10 days when we drop them would count against us.
Against the district.
Yes.
So Sarah,
So-
Well,
oh, go ahead, Lisa.
but if they're re-enrolled,
mm-hmm.
it would still count against us, but then we'd have an extra as if there was a new student, or we're just dinged.
No, it's not a new student, just a returning student. So it's the overall number is still the same.
So we
It's not
wouldn't
that student isn't a new
long-term be
student.
dinged then if they're re-enrolled.
It depends on the reporting period. There, there's a lot of complexities that go into ADM. No,
No, I was wondering the same about the 10, I thought 10 days was really a
yeah,
short
but then
period.
there's the
Sarah, when you say when we lose a kid, that's about 11,000.
correct.
When you say when we
But-
lose a kid, does that mean after the 10-day drop? Can you
So-
elaborate a bit on what it means to lose a kid?
Mm-hmm. So for every student that's enrolled, we're allocated approximately $11,000 for next year. But again, there's a lot more that goes into that because we need to look at the enrollment at the state level and district overall. So if our enrollment increases and statewide enrollment decreases, then the impact is not $11,000 because the state school funds are then rebalanced based upon those enrollment numbers. So that's why it's really hard to quantify what that impact would actually be.
So at this time, do you know if overall at the state level, if enrollment is increasing or decreasing?
Well, I'd have to go back and double check what they put on the estimate.
Because then our enrollment, is it increasing or decreasing?
Our enrollment has increased ever so slightly.
Wasn't that part of the package you sent to us earlier, Jenny? About the enrollment? I thought I saw that.
The enrollment numbers are part of what was presented last at the training. We went through and looked at the enrollment numbers over the last several years at the different levels.
On page 5.
Five, what?
5. The graphs on
Yeah.
5. Shows we went up a little.
So statewide enrollment for next year for ADMR, they're projecting to be 535,070 students. ADMW is 670,256. Again, this is for 25-26. For this year, as of their last estimate, hold on, this is a really big document. The estimated ADMR is 536,969, and ADMW is 668,883. So not a huge shift overall between the two years. Okay. So going down to the state school fund general purpose grant percent change, this one is specific to us and how our state school fund grant has changed year over year over the prior year. So you'll see we had almost a 6% increase in the grant, the state school fund grant from last year to this year, which is fantastic. But again, it just covers roll-up costs. So the budget committee did a lot of work last year to get our staffing levels appropriate. So we're in a really good place with that increase. So that's great. The average yearly district enrollment you'll see on page 5. Again, our enrollment is increasing slightly over last year, more in alignment with the 22-23 year, but we're still not nearly as high as we were even back in 18-19. 15-16 I like to put in there because that was like our highest year of enrollment in recent history, but we'll still be down over 500 students from that high point. I think it's important to note that. So the expenditures per student, please don't be alarmed. The state has changed how they're tracking this data and reporting this data. So you see this huge jump from 21-22 to 22-23. How they reported it previously was only general fund expenditures. Now they're reporting all expenditures across the board, so grant funds as well. So that's why you see that huge jump. I couldn't go back to pull data, historical data, to be more reflective. I think the most valuable portion is when you're just looking at the comparison between the district and state expenditures. Our expenditures still outpace the statewide average. It's because we do receive a lot of additional grant dollars that a lot of districts don't receive, and we have some heavier ADM weights that a lot of districts don't have. So it's reflective of that.
Does that allow us to obtain more grants because of that heavy ADM?
Not because of our ADM, but because of our unique student populations.
Oh.
So for example, we get Title I-C because we have a large migrant student population. Where was that?
What's ADM?
Oh, thank you.
Average daily membership.
That was in the email that Jenny sent regarding today's meeting.
All right, so moving on to page 6. The 25-26 school year is the first year of the 25-27 biennium. Again, the state has not yet solidified our state school fund. We're going off the governor's estimate. Again, we're pretty confident with that number from everything we're hearing. So that's what we're moving forward with. We're anticipating the general fund expenses will increase by about 7%, and that's in total, with our PERS rate increases going up. We don't have insurance or cost of living increases settled yet with the associations, so that information will come as soon as those contracts are set.
These are the local housing associations, right? The local housing associations? Or,
No, we're referring to our licensed and classified
Oh.
associations, so our bargaining units.
I shouldn't know that.
It's okay. The next several pages are just some organizational overviews. Again, I think it's important to put the strategic plan at the center of what we do, because that really shapes the budget. So I like having that in here.
So I have a question. Kelly's term is ending this year, so is that going to give her the opportunity to stay on board or choose to resign? That's up to her, right?
It's
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, it's up to her. But we would love to have her back.
Yeah, we appreciate all our community members who step forward into the roles of budget, board, and the service they provide. So
Mhm.
thank you.
And we will start bothering you shortly after your term expiration to come back. Okay. So I'm actually going to jump to page 14. These are our major revenue sources within the general fund. We have our taxes. Again, there's a limit on the amount that the county can increase our tax rate. They can only increase the amounts levied by 3% each year, and they always do. The only thing that would change is an increased property tax base. So while the amount they can assess can only increase by 3%, the number of properties within the base can increase. But again, as we've talked about before, when our property taxes go up, conversely, our state school fund goes down to keep those measures equitable. So even if we have a huge increase in property taxes, that equal reduction will come out of state school fund. So there's not really a huge benefit to us in that manner unless we get additional students.
Right, even though all this construction around Parr Road, all those houses and so forth, for instance, Brighton Point, they're only in phase 1. There's like 4 more phases.
Again, our funding is really only impacted by the increase of enrollment, so
Right.
bring your kids. We do have quite a bit of interest revenue that comes in. We only presently have one approved investment source, and that's the local government investment pool. It's all monitored by the state. It's very safe and guaranteed investments. It's like your at-home money market savings account, if you will. So we try to put all of our extra cash, if you may, there, so we do get some returns. Our county school fund is unique. We usually get about $70,000 from the county school fund. It's from unclaimed property, forest management, gifts to the state and county. Not a huge source, but again, it's there.
So regarding county school fund, in 21-22, it was quite a bit. It was like 234,000.
And again, it's depends on what comes in that year. It's usually not that much. It's pretty unique when it is that much.
That's pretty high.
But
Very minor amount, but we have acreage south of Heritage, and we also have property. We have we lease farm ground, and those farmers pay a rental fee to use that ground. And where is that captured in here.
Yeah, if you look at page 17 under rentals,
Okay.
it's encapsulated there. The rental fees are really quite low on agricultural land.
Yeah.
The market rate in general is just not very high.
Thank you. I just wasn't sure where it was. We're getting there. Thank you.
All encapsulated there. And we can jump there now. We can get a little more detailed into the state sources. On page 17, we really only have two, the state school fund and the common school fund. The common school fund is a statewide pool. The amount we receive is like property taxes, so it comes off of the state school fund amount. So if that amount shot up really high for some reason, our state school fund would come down proportionally. The state tells us each year what that amount's going to be. So it's not a guessing game for us. Fees charged to grants. So that's unique in that most grants allow us to charge what's called an indirect rate. So that's our fee for administering the grants, for adhering to all the requirements of the grants, for doing the financial reporting, the reviews ahead of time, things like that. Miscellaneous, we actually have quite a bit of miscellaneous revenue that comes in. This could be donations, this could be restitution. A lot of times this is our insurance premium coming back to us because we're part of a school-wide insurance pool. So any amount that's not used per their regulations is returned to the district, so that comes in there. The Education Service District apportionment. The ESD receives a portion of our state school fund on our behalf, and we purchase services directly from them. Any amounts that we have in the amount that was given to them, quote unquote, that isn't used is returned to us.
So why in 23, 24, it was such a significant amount?
Because that actually crossed 2 fiscal years. So a portion of the 23-24 amount actually belonged to 22-23.
What kind of services do we purchase from them? Can you identify those?
Sure, I can talk about a couple and one can jump into on this one. So our substitute services for any general fund funded teacher, they pay for on our behalf through our apportionment money. There's some specific SPED services that we purchase from them. Background checks are run through them. There's some software programs like the Oregon Data Suite that's purchased from them. Anything?
Yeah, some other minor, not super big things, but things that we do purchase or had purchased, like transcripting services, some different language services. So just different things that are we may not have in house that we could purchase and portion from the ESD.
The biggest chunk of it would be this, the special education services and substitute services.
Just for understanding, so substitutes are paid out, if a teacher is paid out of the general fund, the substitute has to be paid out of the general fund through
Correct.
the ESD. And then if they come out of one of the special funds, the special fund has to cover the cost
Yep.
of the substitutes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
So revenues are pretty straightforward in the general fund, not a ton of sources. They're pretty predictable. So that's what you see there. Now if we can jump to page 19. This is your expenditure summary by object. So when we're looking at the account code structure, we have fund, function, and then object is the third set of digits. So salaries and benefits that Juan touched on earlier in his message is our highest expenditure, as it should be. Again, we're not unique here. This is what it should look like and does look like in districts across the state. Our biggest investment is our people here. So you see that as our highest number.
So it increased by 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because salaries went up?
Salaries will go up and benefits associated with salaries will go up. Mhm. Purchase services and company encompasses a host of things. The main things under purchase services Our utilities is a big one. Student transportation is the other largest one, as well as our insurance. And I'm talking about liability property insurance, fall under purchase services. Supplies and materials are as it sounds. It is pens, paper, computer hardware, computer software, things of that nature.
Is that also going to cover the, you know how last year all the students' supplies were covered? So, and it's just going to continue on to the next year?
Correct. That all falls under that supplies and materials object. Correct.
So all of those supplies were purchased by the district, none of them were part of a grant?
Correct. They were purchased by the district. Mhm.
That way the previous.
Yes. Capital expenditures are 500 objects. This is mainly things that fall under the maintenance line items. The other expenditures, I apologize, that's where the property insurance lies. I don't know why I was thinking it was under 300. Then we have our transfers out, which would be our transfers to our athletic reserve, our major maintenance, and to cover a portion of that debt service that we talked about earlier. We also like to have a contingency and a reserve for the next year. Contingencies an amount that we can come to the board and ask them to allow us to expend. Say something happens within the year that we didn't account for, but we need that money, we can come to the board and ask them to transfer that into a different line item. We haven't done that in the past several years, but again, it's really that just in case amount. So we don't have a plan for contingency, it's truly just a contingency. And then again, per board policy, we have to set aside between 5 and 10% of our ending fund balance to reserve for the following year. So we've done that within this budget.
Is that all rollover? Like that just continues to grow over time?
The fund balance?
The fund balance, yes.
So the fund balance fluctuates based upon the amount of revenue we receive and the amount of expenditures we incur. So if we eliminated millions of dollars in expenditure, ending fund balance would grow. Or if we had a huge influx of revenue into the general fund, fund balance would grow. Yes, so it's all affected by the revenue and expenditures.
So for
And
the most
Sarah,
part,
go ahead, Rick.
so for the most part, the contingency and reserve should be growing unless there's something major that impacts it, or?
Not necessarily. It should
Okay.
remain fairly stable over
Okay.
time. Yeah.
So, go ahead, Naomi.
So can you correct me if I'm wrong, but do we need a minimum amount in reserves?
We do. We need between 5 and 10% of revenue.
And so what is that now?
Presently, hold on. Let me pull it up.
Or an estimate would be fine too.
So 5% would be 4.889 million.
So we're just kind of a little above that.
We are a little above that. For my preference, honestly, I think 5% is a little low. So we're a little above that.
Thank you.
So, again, because I have last year's,
Mhm.
why is in the contingency was negative 44%?
Negative 44% for the contingency.
Percent change.
That's
the
the percent change over the prior year. And are you looking at contingency or contingency and ending fund balance?
It's contingencies 800.
So that's contingencies and ending fund balance. So we had budgeted for a lower ending fund balance over the prior year. Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so moving on to page 20, you're going to find a very similar diagram, but it's by function. So we don't have a lot of unique functions. The 1,000 functions are all instruction functions. 2,000 is support services. 3,000 is enterprise and community service. 5,000 others, and then we have contingencies and reserves. It is not unique to see the most of the budget to be in instruction. That's really where most of the budget belongs. These are things that are supporting directly in the classroom. So classroom teachers, EAs that are in the classroom. Support services do support the classroom. For example, counselors, social workers, things like that. They're supporting students, but because they're not directly in the classroom, they're in a 2000 function. We don't have a lot in enterprise and community service. Most of that comes in our grants. We do a lot of work there. The 5,000 other uses is our debt service if we had any in the general fund, and transfers out.
What is debt services?
We don't presently have any debt service in the general fund. It's all within our debt service fund. So that pays for our general obligation bond and the full faith and credit obligation we have.
So we're looking at a 500,000, somewhere around there, about 550,000 increase this year? In that debt service transfers, is that what we're doing is transfer?
So that's not only debt service.
That, okay.
The debt service portion of that transfer is actually really quite small. But if you recall, we are increasing our transfers to major maintenance and the athletic reserve this year
Okay,
over last
okay.
year.
So that's where that's like, okay.
Mhm, yes, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Okay. So I like these pages a lot better than the detailed pages, the ones that are coming up next. I think it does probably the best job of encapsulating the true changes year over year. So we have our general fund function summary on pages 21 and 22. And then, oh, of course, on pages 23 and 24, I apologize, but it got sorted incorrectly. You see the 300 objects on page 23 and the 100 objects on page 24. So, yeah, I
I
apologize.
can't work under these conditions.
Okay, we're done for the night. We're calling it. We're calling it. So I want to go to page 24 first.
Oh, did we skip page 21?
Yes, I did. I want to move to page 24 first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're coming back to 21, right?
Yep, we're going to come back.
We're working backwards.
We're working backwards. Okay, so when we look at these overall, as we move down, so again, we're looking at objects. That is the third set of digits when you're looking at the account structure and the detail pages. I feel like it's a little easier to look at the changes that are happening there. So for license salaries, we're actually increasing slightly in license salaries, as well as classified salaries. Administrator salaries, FTE are decreasing, and managerial salaries is actually a reclassification of a position that was formerly classified as managerial, but really is classified. So that's moving over there. So that is not a reduction in a position, it's a change in classification there.
This is a great page that provides that summary of like overall, here is the change from last year to this year. Particularly in the FTE, it could sometimes be easy to get lost in the other pages with the shuffling of how somebody is coded. And this kind of gives you we're actually increasing or decreasing overall. And so this is really love this page.
Okay. So you'll also see as we move down, the PERS changes are pretty significant over the prior year for the employer contribution. Again, that's because of our PERS rate increases. A lot of our other benefits are tied to salary levels, so that's why you'll see changes on there as well. Not a lot of other changes in the benefit levels overall, but they're generally tied to the number of FTE.
So
we have.
just to go back up in the in-district subs license, those are our own subs versus you mentioned earlier ESD also provides subs.
So our in-district license subs is anytime we ask a licensed teacher to give up their prep time to sub in a classroom. So say a science teacher is out for the last class, and instead of getting a full day sub to come in, we say, hey, would you mind giving up your prep and subbing for so-and-so? And then we pay them for missing that prep. That's what that line item's for.
I have a question. On the workers' comp, what caused that significant increase?
the significant increase on workers' comp is the amount that we're paying to the state for unemployment compensation.
Was it not paid was it under a different category or something, like in 22, 23, 23, 24?
So, and it should actually be under employment compensation, but that's just a housekeeping thing. We don't actually need to change that. So if you recall, the law changed in last year. Last year, that allows classified employees to file for unemployment during school recess periods. So that has gone up significantly
You mean in the summer?
in the summer and spring break and winter break.
So they collect unemployment during the summer months
Correct.
because there's no work available.
Correct.
I gotcha.
Correct.
Even though their salary is allocated in a 12-month period.
Correct. And again, that's a state level change. That's not a Woodburn School District change. You'll see some other increases below in things like electricity and fuel. Those things are obviously going up over time. Student transportation will increase because we have negotiated increases in contracts with them, and that's on page 23 if you want to jump back. So our consumable supplies are going up, and again, these are just things that are changing over time. We did have some textbook adoptions that'll be coming out of the general fund next year that were paid for out of the student investment account last year, so you'll see more there. Not a lot of change in computer hardware or computer software. Nothing terribly exciting to report on those ones. But those do encompass the general replacement cycles that IT has put in place for staff and student computers.
Can I ask about the textbooks?
Yes.
I guess it seems to jump quite a bit year to year.
Mm-hmm.
Is there like a kind of a cycle on purchasing a textbook?
So we generally have a textbook adoption every year. There's certain textbook adoptions that are more costly than others. For example, science is a really costly one because we have to purchase all the supplies associated with it as well.
Oh, okay.
So it depends on the textbook adoption that's occurring. Our teaching and learning department tells us which textbook adoption is, and they
the
budget
state
for
level?
it. Oh, I'm sorry, what?
Does the state decide which books we're using, or is it?
The state has approved lists, pre-approved lists
Oh, okay.
that we can go off of.
Yeah, and the state provides us an adoption calendar, adoption cycle calendar that we follow, and then our adoption committees work to select the material that we will be implementing.
Okay.
Is that like Ballard's, what are they, guinea pigging that science program?
They're doing some pilots right
Right,
now.
pilot.
Yeah, different teachers will pilot different materials that are on the adoption committee.
And on that same page, I guess, is it other communication services? Can you talk about that? 359.
359. Yes, so other communication services, that would be, oh, what is that one? Hold on. I want to make sure I'm telling you the right thing. Pretty sure I am. Yes, that's the internet and fiber connections for
Oh, okay.
our district. Yep.
Come down quite a bit.
It has.
Sorry,
Can you
printing
share
and
about what's going to change with that?
I'm sorry, what?
So with that reduction, so the 359 reduction as well as the 350 communication, what's the difference?
The communication piece could encompass a lot of things. I know before that's been PR, that's been cell phones, that's been a whole host of things. The 359 is solely the, I'm trying to think of a fancy word for internet, but it's really internet,
Fiber optic.
fiber optics,
Internet
Oh,
access.
yeah,
yeah, internet access, yeah.
And so what, help me understand the decrease in that. Is it because we invested last year and we don't need to invest in it as much this year or for this coming year?
I think it just, this is the cost it's going to continue to allow us to provide the internet service that we need. We're not reducing the services that we have. But this will be able to purchase what we need for our current internet services.
But last year it was 200, it was 205.
Yes, I know work is being done to switch over the different fiber option that we're using. And my understanding is that is going to result in a decreased cost for us with faster speeds.
Can you help me understand the price increases in like printing and binding and consumable supplies?
So printing and binding now encompasses the district-wide printer contract. So before, each building paid separately for their own printers that they contracted for on their own, they selected. We've rolled all that up at the district level, and we're now paying for that from the district, so that's under printing and binding. Before that was under rentals, so you would have seen that under there. And then what was the other one, I'm sorry, that you wanted?
And then consumable supplies, there's like a $500,000 increase.
Consumable supplies is mainly dictated at the building level. So any changes you see there are really what they're saying they're going to do. You'll also see adoption manipulatives in that one as well. So if it's related to a textbook adoption and materials they need. Paper, pencils, science beakers, anything like that. Correct.
So why is there two election, like, 388 and then 2314?
So 2314 is the function. So you'll see, so it'll be 100. I can actually show you the page it's on, and that may make it a little clearer. Yeah, it's the same amount.
Right.
It's just reflected a little differently. So if you look at page 17, you'll see, and that's A17, you'll see Fund 100, 2314-0388 election services, and that's $9,000.
What is that exactly, Sarah?
Jenny can probably speak to that one.
That's money we pay to the county for election services. So that since this is an election year, we'll get billed for that in 25-26 school year.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
And we're required to pay that.
For the county or the
To the
state?
county.
To the county.
Marion County.
Okay, and the function right above that, Board of Education.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Can you share more about what that is?
The Board of Education, Jenny, do you want to?
Sure. This is the board's budget.
Yeah.
Is there particular, so a lot of it's actually just even liability stuff that we pay. Some of it, like classified and certified appreciation supplies, that comes out of here. Negotiation services, so both bargaining units are in negotiation, so that gets paid out of here. It's not your salary, by the way. So it's just a lot of dues and
I don't see
fees.
a salary.
No, we didn't add salaries this year. And the biggest portion, is actually the liability insurance. For some reason, ODE says we need to record the liability insurance under this function.
Liability for,
This liability and insurance, I believe, is related to criminal liability. So what we pay in case one of our employees does something bad.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's say, for instance, somebody, like board member from myself, makes a decision and then a community member goes after me individually through the court system, this liability doesn't cover it.
Yeah.
The majority of the times, no. The Oregon Government Ethics Commission would find you directly.
Right, so this is just the school district is
School
protecting
district.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you speak to function 2320, executive administration services?
You bet. So that's for the operation of the superintendent's office. So you'll see Juan's salary there, Jenny's salary there, for example, and then anything that goes on within there.
Right, so I see adopted FTE 2 and proposed 2.5. Can you
Yes.
speak to that one?
I can. That's really not an increase in allocation. It's reclassifying a current employee's salary. So the district receptionist was recorded somewhere else in the prior year. It's split now for a portion to be reflected here.
So we have an additional,
No, we don't actually have an additional. It's not an increase.
They just split the salary.
It's just a coding difference. That's one of the reasons why I don't like to delve too deep into these individual line items, because we do shift people around fairly frequently based upon what they're doing. So for example, if we're just looking at function 1111 and you see a decrease, that doesn't mean we're actually reducing FTE. They could be reflected in 1291. There could be a fluctuation of FTE from elementary to middle school or middle school to high school. So that's why I like looking more at those summary pages when we're looking at overall FTE.
okay,
Because no, that's not an actual increase, but good observation.
so, right, so help me understand, what is that exactly? So that's 2 FTE, and then the other half is,
The district
Reception.
office receptionist. And that position has been here for years.
is that the welcoming desk area?
Yes, correct.
And that was just under a different category before?
Yes, it was reflected differently previously.
Okay.
So Sarah, under that executive administration services, you said that that's like superintendent salary and the superintendent's office salary.
Correct.
So I noticed that in 2023, 22, 23, it was significantly higher. And I know that, I believe that's because we had an assistant superintendent, right, position. It gets cut down to
Correct.
23, 24. It goes back up in 24, 25. And now we're kicking it back up. But yet still maintaining the same. So I'm just trying to figure out, we are going back up, but the office still stays the same.
Correct. So the salary would reflect any negotiated or contracted COLAs, things like that.
Okay, so it's all salary and benefits. And
Mhm.
like,
Yep.
and-
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Everything that's
No
negotiated.
operational costs are in there.
You'll see
costs,
operational
That's
costs.
the Board of Ed, right?
You'll see operational costs below, midway down the page. So rentals and on. So you'll see 12320 0324 rentals, and then everything below that would be operations for that department.
And then function 2410, Office of the Principal Services. What is that exactly?
Office of the Principal Services encompasses all of the principals within the district, all of the assistant principals within the district, all of the building secretaries within the district, head secretaries, assistant secretaries at the building level.
So we adopted 43 FTE, and this time we're proposing 41. Can you speak to that?
There was a shift in FTE. The 1.0 FTE went to a grant to operate a specific portion of the high school success grant. And then through attrition, there was one FTE reduction.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask about?
Yeah.
2115,
2115, you bet.
student safety.
On page 11? Is that what you're looking at?
I'm looking at 21.
I'm sorry, one more time.
Sorry, I was looking at 21.
Oh, 21.
I'm sorry. No, just 21.
Yes. The student safety line.
Mhm.
So there has been an increase in campus monitors. There was a shift from an EA position to a campus monitor position at the request of one of the building administrators. So that shift was made. The cost is essentially the same to the district, just the duties are different.
So it's campus security.
The campus
people?
monitor.
Oh, okay.
This also encompasses the school resource officer contract as well.
Is that also considered that you guys are gonna be hiring more campus, the security officers,
The school resource officer?
resource officers, excuse me?
The city is going to be providing us additional school resource officers. Our cost is still maintaining what it is. We pay for the portion of one school resource officer, and the city provides us with, intending to provide 2 additional resource officers, but not at additional cost to the district.
Is there a reason we're increasing the officers or?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that
What?
question?
If we're increasing the officers on campus, why are we doing that? Or why do we have to pay for
We're not paying additional resource officers.
okay. We have to pay for one of them, you said?
Yeah, we pay for a portion of one of the school resource officers, and then the city is providing us with 2 additional school resource officers.
Okay.
So, the student safety, like how are they distributed throughout the district? Our student safety employees? The campus monitors.
Three at 2 middle schools.
And is it like 2 are allocated to one school and one's allocated to another, or are they like roaming? When you say 3 between the 2 schools?
I believe there's 2 at Valor, 1 at French Prairie. Valor has a higher student population.
How much higher is it? You know,
I'd have to go back and look, but that was their request this year, was to transfer one of their EA positions into a campus monitor position.
and what training are campus monitors given to prepare them for that role? Or is it just you're hired in that position?
No, they do go through a certification training. The name of the training is escaping me right now, but they are trained.
It's through DPSST. It's a requirement that if you're going to have campus safety and security, that you're required to go through the certification through DPSST, which is the Law Enforcement Academy. And so under that umbrella, they have certain other programs. So there's campus security, there's private security, there's private investigators. And so they're all these different professions have to be certified through the state.
Through the same program. And then with the school resource officers, like the additional officers that will be receiving, do they determine where they go, like which schools they're monitoring, or are they driving around the community, or is that something that the district determines where we'd like them to be?
Yeah, we work to determine where, so that we'd have somebody at the high school, we'd have 2 at one at each middle school, and then we come up with a schedule where they're supporting the elementary schools.
Okay.
I have a question on page 21. Under assessment and testing, Juan, can you speak to those services and the reduction in the amount of almost half of what's in this document?
2230.
Yes.
I can.
Yeah, go for it, Sarah.
One of the tests that we currently pay for, the administrators and staff identified one that they like better, that is more widely used across the state, and it's actually quite a bit cheaper. So they will be moving to that test for next year.
So we are still offering the same service.
Yes, it's just at a much lower cost and a more widely used test.
This would be the test that the elementary MTSS committee was looking at. And so they went through and worked with some teachers and administrators to come up with an assessment that provides us pretty comparable. I think it's actually more robust testing data for our students in the 2 languages.
Oh, okay, so this is academic testing.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks. And then the item below that, instructional staff development. Can you speak to what that is exactly? And then to the reduction in what's being proposed?
Sure. So instructional staff development will incorporate the supplies that we use for our November conferences, for our new teacher seminars, any sort of professional development that we do in-house generally falls under this 2240 amount. Because we have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So PD for example, licensed staff or educators, that happens on Mondays. Does it fall under here?
It would, yes.
So we are going to see a reduction in that?
We're not going to see a reduction in the PD. We're seeing a reduction in the cost of the PD.
Oh, okay. Is that because of the November conference no longer happening?
It could be for a variety of reasons. Just the different trainings are less expensive. The materials that are being utilized at those trainings are being reduced. It's just reducing the spending of what happens on those professional development days.
We did also receive a grant in this current year that has prepaid for a portion of the training that will be ongoing into next year as well.
Thank you. I don't see the function number on here, but in reviewing this earlier, I had questions around, I think maybe out of district travel. Can you speak to what that will look like next year as far as, I know there were different amounts throughout this and I can't locate them in this document.
So you'll see that on page 23, I think is what you're looking for.
Oh. Where is it exactly?
On function 342. Yes, object 342.
Yes.
So out of district travel encompasses a lot of things. Anytime someone leaves Woodburn, it's considered out of district travel. So if they're attending a conference at the ESD in Salem, for example, the cost of the mileage for the staff member to get there would come out of district travel. The cost for registration there would come out of district travel. We had a bunch of staff attend the PBIS conference in Portland. All of that comes out of district travel. So it's really dependent upon what the department is sending their staff to and where that training is located. Sometimes it's picking a student up that resides in Salem or Wilsonville and transporting that student. That would fall under out of district travel.
And so this year, are we close to using all of those funds? And is that the reason why we're proposing more for next year?
I would have to go back and reflect on each individual departments. Again, each building develops their own budget for what they want to do for these line items. So I'd have to go back and look and discuss with them individually what their plan was there.
Okay, and then I'm just curious, this might be a question for Juan. So when staff go on lengthy conferences, I mean, of course, we want our staff to learn and to attend conferences. Is there, when they return, is there, I don't know, like a plan or how they're going to implement or apply what they've learned if they've been away for an example, like a week?
Well, it depends a little bit on who's initiating the conference or the professional development. If it's part of an organized effort by the principal or the department where we're sending folks for something, a purpose, then yes, there is part of that plan built in. But sometimes individuals utilize their professional development funds. And so when they utilize their own individual professional development funds and they go somewhere, it's really the individual's choice that they're going. And so there's not necessarily a obligation they're going to come back and disperse that information with with everybody else. There's a part where they have to, have approval, where like, here's how I'm going to use the learning of that conference. Here's how it's going to impact me as an individual, but that's the individual's choice on how they're using their professional development funds. And so it's not necessarily part of an organized effort by a building to make a system-wide change to a practice.
So there's a set amount for like classified and certified?
Yeah, I will add, there's negotiated amounts in those contracts for professional
Okay.
development that we
Okay.
provide. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sarah, can you talk about 350 communication and what that is defined as?
I'd have to talk to Corinne in IT. That all falls under the IT budget, but I believe, no, I don't want to speak to that too thoroughly. Let me pull up her budget. The budget there.
And that was gonna be my same question, just that 70,000, if it dealt with communication, like district communication, or if it was technology based, so.
My understanding is it's technology based. I just don't want to tell you incorrectly. So that has to do with Google Voice accounts, our SMORE subscription, things like that. So the services we use to communicate with families. So this would also have things like Parent Square, Class Dojo, School Messenger, Remind. Yes, that
Yeah,
would fall under the communication.
There's definitely been a concerted effort, I'd say last year and this year, to coordinate that communication and utilize the same tools. So you see SMORE, and all of our schools are using that to develop similar looking newsletters for families that are going out at regular intervals. So that's there, and then we'll see that new communication tool, Parent Square, being utilized next year. We'll be all learning more about that.
Is that going to replace the other ones?
Remind.
It'll replace Remind?
Yeah.
How much do we pay? I guess I'm kind of curious what we're paying for each one of those. Cause like, I think Class Dojo is okay, but Remind, I don't, yeah, I guess I'd be curious to see like what we're paying for each one of those things.
They're not cheap.
Yeah. So,
But my understanding is Parent Square purchased Remind.
okay.
I believe.
So are we looking at kind of effectivity of those and, as opposed to like having the staff put together an email and an email list or something like that, to do those things?
Yeah, like we can look at some of the tools, looks more, I could speak to that one for, there are analytics that we're then able to take a look at and see, well, how many parents, how many read the newsletter, how long did they engage with it, what portions of the newsletter did they interact with. And so we do get analytics to know like the effectiveness of our communication and what people are really interested in and looking at and knowing more about.
I know they did a lot of work when they were looking at Parent Square as well at districts around us. A lot of districts around us use that tool. And I know they received a lot of positive feedback about how it worked in those districts.
So we're getting more parent engagement is the idea. Okay.
As a parent with students in multiple schools, I really appreciate it when it's streamlined and I can go to one place and find the information I need. The last couple of years, it was all over the board and I didn't know where to go. It was really frustrating.
It's good to hear.
Good feedback. Thank you.
Along communication, just really quick, I see that you have public information services that and a full-time district PIO. Is that a district staff?
Are you looking at function 26?
I'm looking at 2633 on, yeah,
Yes, that's a full-time person.
that's a full-time, okay.
and she's fantastic.
Question, so under 411 gasoline and the next, and then page 24, under fuel 326, are those two different things?
Yes. Fuel is actually, like our gas heat, or, yes, fuel is gas heat. Gasoline is vehicle gasoline.
Thank you.
At 24.
I'm sorry, can you help me understand again for function 21, 22 for counseling, how we're not losing 3.5 FTEs? Can you just remind me again? I'm sorry.
Yes, of course. So that FTE is moved out of the general fund over to special revenue.
That's right, okay,
Mhm.
to
Yeah,
special
the
revenue.
Changes reflected there.
Item 384, negotiating services.
Mhm.
Is that because of the staff negotiating?
Yes, for negotiating the collective bargaining agreements with classified and licensed.
So my big question is, with negotiations going on, and who knows where they're gonna settle, what if it's over what this budget is built for? When, how does that get implemented? You know, where do the cuts get made? How do those cuts get made? And who makes those kinds of decisions? And at what point are those decisions made? Is it like, hey, let's see how far in the year we can get? Or like, once we know contracts, you know, like once that is finalized, then we have to readjust the budget?
Yeah, the bargaining team would work, district bargaining team would work really closely with our school board to set priorities and say, here's where we're operating in, and here's where what's inbounds and what's out of bounds, and work really closely to stay within our budget. And so we work closely with our school board to help make some of those decisions and set some of those priorities.
Does a contingency cover it? Oh, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Does a contingency money cover that, or is that for other?
So contingency could cover that. Mhm.
Yeah. So it's for this year and then the following school year? Like,
We're negotiating the contracts that will be in effect starting in the 25-26 school year. They're usually 3-year contracts, but any salary increases that you see in here are just reflective of the changing cost for 25-26.
but we also have it adopted in 24-25.
Yes, because we had already negotiated salary increases in 24-25. Those are reflected here.
Oh, that's another. Okay.
Yep.
So the proposed ending fund balance for 25-26 puts us at around 5.8%.
Mhm.
And so we would have that 0.8% to essentially for COLAs and raises and step increases, or does that money then we have to take from other places to cover that, or without a board decision to go below that 5%?
Yeah, what I was going to share is I just want to caution us a little bit. Our bargaining conversation, just I don't want us to get in a position where we're bargaining perhaps outside of the bargaining space and talking about what we could give and what we're not going to give. And
Got it.
so just want to caution us about that.
Okay.
So we have projected COLA and health insurance changes and increases into the contract already. That's already built in.
I was missing that part.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If for some reason we had to land differently, then we could come back to the board to ask for money out of contingency or any other changes or reductions we had to make in other areas.
Thank you.
Tuition license reimbursement, is that for the teachers to get additional education?
Correct. Yeah. Per their bargaining agreement, we have to set aside a certain amount that they can access.
I have a question. Not specific to a function or object number, but my question is, can you share or give examples in this document here how schools will be receiving more support, less support, or the same support?
Well, all these functions that we just looked at are, predominantly to support schools and instruction. So what we see in the licensed FTE, if we go back and look on page 24, we see a slight increase in the licensed FTE. So that's a slight increase of support being provided to schools.
So maybe let me be more specific. So support as in maybe, you mentioned in the previous meeting and maybe even before that, just students asking for social emotional needs. And so is that reflected in this document here?
The counseling services, the counselors that they're available are the same. The mental health professionals are all staying at the same level of FTE.
So everything's the same.
Yes, things are heavily the same as they are, just rolling up.
So it sounds like there's a request for an increase in need, and that we know that there is a need, but the service will remain the same.
Predominantly the services are remaining the same, but we are working with our schools and looking at the data to determine how to support those different needs.
Thank you.
Quick question on the special revenue funding. Mainly was talk that, well, not talk, but mentioned that we received Title 1A and Title C. But do we also get Title 11A? We also get that kind of funding as well?
Yes, so Title II.
Two.
We do receive Title II. Presently, I'm getting very into the weeds on this, but we transfer our Title II grant into our Title I grant. So it's all pooled under that amount. But yes, we do. It funds teacher mentors. We have 2 of them.
I know that we already talked about student safety, but as I was looking through the page, I saw security services, and then I saw safety on page 22. Just wanted to see what the distinctions in those, in the 3, if there was something different in that.
So security services would be like our security systems. So like our school alarms, things like that.
It's not something like a contracted security or something like that. It's just
No,
systems.
yeah, correct.
And then the safety, the 2646.
2646, that would be, that pays for the CPR classes for staff.
Oh,
Okay. That's what that function is.
This was the last section, right, that we were covering?
This is what, you want more? Yeah.
The end.
Yes, the general fund is the end.
So we kind of already moved into the, budget discussion and so forth. So we're kind of in that. So I want to formally just ask again if there's any other comments, questions that you take a look through the report that has been presented by Director Bishop. We've asked a lot, which is good.
I have another question. Under page 21 for Library and Media Center, can you speak to the reduction in FTE that's being proposed?
Yes, so presently in this current year, the middle school and high school librarians are teaching classes for a portion of their day. So they're split between the classroom and the library. And so that just this is updating what they're actually doing. So there's not a reduction in total FTE there. They're just teaching courses, a portion of the day.
So then the Library Media Center will be available to students?
Yes, it's
Less
still
than
available
what it
to
is
students.
now? Or
It's
is it?
still,
You guys still be available to the same level it is now. It's just coding them appropriately to match up what they're actually doing.
Okay.
But it is not as available as it was like 2 years ago, correct? Because those librarians are teaching. So next year will be what it's been this year. But the previous year, they were full-time librarians.
correct.
Question about the money that we pay out to the Willamette College and Career. It's my understanding that the Woodburn School District reserves a certain number of spaces and pays for those in advance, regardless of how many students are signed up.
Correct.
Could you share with us how much we pay to reserve and then how much is actually utilized? I saw the clarification question in regard to how many go and then maybe stop or finish and those percentages. But I'm wondering about the larger amount. 2 years ago, I contacted them and they told me that Woodburn had the largest group that was reserved, and then they named 2 other school districts that were behind Woodburn. And I was just wondering, what is the total amount that we pay to reserve the spots versus how much we're really utilizing?
Yeah, the past couple of years, we were reserving more spots than where we were able to continue to maintain full all year long. We have renegotiated that, so we're now for the next school year coming to where we are actually filling the seats. So we won't have a surplus of seats. We've come down to have, I think it's 84, 83 spots now, and that's what we're actually needing for our students so that those seats won't be empty.
Was it around 120 previously that we were reserving and paying for?
Yeah, it was 120.
Okay.
And that would be a little over $350,000 for the seats for next year. And that's paid for out of the high school success grant.
That was going to be my question. Is that general fund? Is that?
Yep, high school success. And Juan touched on this in his budget message. So for the reduction in the number of seats, the high school is bringing on additional CTE teachers.
So my question is, what are those CTE programs being offered here in Woodburn?
I believe they are opening up a cosmetology program at the high school for next year. And so there's a posting for a cosmetology teacher. That's one of the most popular pathways that our students are enrolling in at the Willamette Career Academy. So offering it here on campus will give more students access to it.
So is that the only one that's being offered?
And, they have an only new one.
Yeah,
for
that's my
for next year.
question.
Yeah.
And then I assume that no students from Woodburn High School would be going down to the WCA for their cosmetology program because we'd offer it here. That would open up those WCA seats for students to be like in diesel mechanics or other programs.
It'll really be dependent on what the students are really interested in. If we fill it here and they still want to have it filled at the Willamette Career Academy, then we would provide the students with what they're asking for.
That seems like if we offer it here, then it seems like we shouldn't then be giving them that option of going down there too. Like if we can take care of it in-house and that's what we're doing, it just seems silly then to then say, well, you can also go down there. I don't know. It seems like, I don't know. Counterproductive. I don't know.
There's only a certain amount of seats we can buy in each program at the Willamette Career Academy. So again, if we have a large influx of students that want that program, it would make sense to be able to offer them both alternatives so we can meet the student needs. Because we can only reduce the number of slots at certain times
Sure.
as
And
well.
by offering like these CTE programs at Woodburn, will our students come out with like the same certifications that they would get at the WCA? Or is it just, coursework?
No, they would have the same certifications. They would hire the same licensed staff to be able to provide them with the same outcomes.
And so how many students would we be able to accommodate in our space? So when we offer it and we open it up, how many
30,
students can we?
100, 180 in the schedule, this teacher schedule.
180?
Yeah, I'm just multiplying like, okay, if we have 30 seats per class and we have 6 sections.
Oh, I see. So an all day, every period it'll be offered? Just,
If
and,
it-
okay. And how many do we have going to?
if that, like,
come in?
that's building the master schedule. So if there aren't 180 students who sign up for that, then that teacher is going to be teaching some sections of something else. But
Right.
that's the maximum number. Like, okay, if we fill that section, all those sections completely, maybe about
Sure.
180.
And so how many do we have traveling to Salem now for that program?
For the cosmetology one specifically, I have to look that up, but we'd have about 83, 84 students in total going to the Willamette Career Academy for all the programs that are available there.
So potentially, it sounds like we could house that program in our school.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that is
potentially.
potential.
So if I heard you right, this is going to be offered next year?
Yeah, they are. It's a position that's posted, and they're looking to hire.
Okay. And then are we ready to start that class in the fall?
We would be. Yeah,
It's going to happen, huh?
yeah.
Okay.
If you know any qualified applicants, send them our way.
And so then you need a licensed teacher for that, or tell me about that, Sarah.
Oh, I don't know if I can necessarily speak to that.
But yeah,
the
it's a licensed
qualifications.
position. It's so they'd have to have the CTE endorsement, the appropriate CTE endorsement for that pathway.
Oh, I see. So like a master's in teaching plus an endorsement.
In that CTE
Right.
class
Oh.
course.
I've never heard of one of those.
Oh yeah, it's
There are.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
A
really
K through 12 or a high school teacher with that certification.
it's actually the most popular program right now at the Willamette Career Academy.
Where do you get that certification for education? Through a beauty school, or where do they acquire that?
I possibly, I'm not sure exactly where somebody would earn that
Online.
endorsement.
Through an
You know,
online-
Kelly?
Like Aveda, like,
Oh, okay.
those types
Yeah.
of cosmetology schools. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one in Wilsonville. It's pretty.
My hairdresser has
Yeah.
certification, but he
It's-
probably doesn't have a master's in teaching.
It's like a 23,000, I mean, so they would go through a separate cosmetology program. Okay,
In addition to.
wow.
Yeah, you don't have to have a
That's an
master's degree
expensive
to be a teacher.
certificate.
So I want,
Maybe a bachelor, right?
You have a BA, yeah, you have a bachelor's.
so bringing us back to the financial aspects of that. Yes, is there any other discussion or questions in regards to this last session on the general fund?
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Wanted to circle back on the resource officer. Are we contracted to pay the salary or with the part of the salary for that officer?
Yeah, we have an intergovernmental agreement. So we pay a portion of that resource officer's salary. I know Jenny, you having that up, okay?
Okay.
It's a total of 105,000 in that intergovernmental agreement. So it's a portion of the school
Why
resource
doesn't the city
officer's
pay for
salary.
that?
Yeah, and I don't believe the amount we pay has changed in the last 5 years or more.
But yeah, okay. I'm just wondering why the city doesn't pay that.
They pick up the you know, yeah, 288,000 of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in speaking to that, it's a service that the community and parents asked for, and I think the city has been very generous
Sorry, who asked for it?
in paying for that service.
Who asked for it? Or how do we,
We had a committee a few years ago.
oh, I
It
see.
was a result of the community and parent
Okay.
response to that.
All right. Any other questions, comments, discussions in regard to the report that Director Bishop has so graciously shared with us?
And thank you for putting up with my coughing all evening.
Hearing none, I know that the next item on our agenda is public comment. Seeing none, no. Okay. It's just on there, right? So, all right. So at this point, I think that we'll take a kind of roundtable discussion for our next meeting. Is there something that out of all the questions and discussions, comments about everything that was presented, is there something that we would like to request of Director Bishop or Superintendent Larios for our next meeting to present on or bring clarification? For example, I think that one of the questions was, what does it cost when a student doesn't come? So we got a little general number, so that helps a lot. But is there anything from the board right now, or the committee, I should say, or board and committee, that they would like to ask of Director Bishop or Superintendent Larios for the next meeting?
I will also add that you do not have to have another meeting if you feel comfortable approving it tonight, but you're welcome to have another meeting, of course.
I would be interested in doing another final review. But those are my thoughts.
I'd be interested in knowing more about the consumable supplies that schools are asking for. It's a $500,000 increase. So what is it specifically that they're asking for? And then as well as oh, never mind. Yeah, just that one.
I'd be interested in knowing more about the lunch and breakfast. Who we're kind of getting our food from.
Can you be more specific?
Just how that's supplied and who we buy from, and
So who we're contracted with?
or, yeah,
for
who we're contracted
food?
with for the food.
And Naomi, could you repeat what your question was or your request was?
Oh, I didn't have a question, but just my thought is that I just wanted another opportunity to review the budget. So not adopting it tonight.
Okay.
And again, we wouldn't be adopting it tonight.
Yeah.
It'd be approving it.
Oh,
It would still go
approving
to
it,
the,
right.
yeah,
It would still go to the board, right?
Mhm. Yes, the board still has another opportunity at their budget hearing meeting.
Any other information from the rest of the committee members or board members in regards to the budget? As much as I know that today I sat all day in meetings, and as much as I sometimes dislike them, I too would agree with Chair Legaspi is now that with the clarification and a lot of the questions that were asked, it brings a lot of this to light. So I think reviewing this information on our own time and just taking just a deeper look at it, see if anything else from our discussion for the last couple of hours tonight, that having another meeting for the two presentations that have been requested, the consumable supplies and the nutrition, and if anything else comes up from our personal dive into that, I think that would be a great opportunity. And it sounds like we have a date set for already June 3rd. And so I don't know if we need to make a motion to move that forward since it's already on the calendar. We just stay with the status quo of that meeting in place. Is that how I understand that? Okay. So, we agree that, we will meet on June 3rd as already planned and scheduled. Sounds like, okay. Any other discussion, any other comments, last comments, questions?
And that's right before graduation.
Same week, yes.
It's the
The
week of
Thursday.
graduation, yeah. So graduation's on Thursday.
Okay. So, a couple days. So, all right. Hearing no further discussion, hearing no further questions. Okay, I will adjourn this meeting.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
I'd be like,
At 9:30.
Kelly,